You're listening to the Electronic Media Collective Podcast Network. Yeah, it's a mouthful. For more great shows like the one you're about to enjoy, visit electronicmediacollective.com. And now, our feature presentation.
Hello and welcome back to the Movie Graveyard. We're doing something a little bit different here. We're always trying to do stuff for the first time here. And our thing that we're going to experiment with here tonight is actually something that almost every single podcast in the world does. But hey, it's our first stab at it. So we're going to be saying bon voyage, rest in peace, to some of our favorite movies of 2018. Why would we talk about 2018? Yes, this is the Movie Graveyard. We can only talk about old movies. We dig up old movies. We dissect them. Yes, you are correct. But in order to be able to dig these up 20 years from now, we got to bury them right now. So I brought in all the grave diggers tonight. Part-time, full-time, it don't matter. Everybody's here. Everybody's going to be digging a grave. We are ready to rock. We are ready to roll. On my left, I have representing the amazing, worldwide popular Kaiju Transmissions podcast. We got Matt and Byrd. Guys, how you doing tonight?
Good, man. Happy to be here. Thanks for having us on.
Of course.
I'm doing well. Coming at you from the deep freeze temperature of Michigan right now.
Yeah, it's gonna be negative 20 tonight. For those who don't know, tonight and tomorrow, we're excited about it.
And I thought I was bad, freezing my ass off with 50 degrees right here. Damn, you guys got it bad. So, sitting over in the corner here, cracking a Joker smile and laugh, we have the one, the only, the guy that for Christmas will give you a children's book about a jelly donut. Yes, I'm talking about the one and only Jelly. Jelly, what's going on, man? How you been?
We're chilly here in Texas, too. It's 41.
Ooh.
I hate all of you.
And last...
I'm doing good, though. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. Well, we should just say real quick that you actually, you kind of like help get the ball rolling on this because as some listeners know, maybe some don't, but we have all had former podcasts where we really focused on pretty much like current events of films, I would say. And we all of us, for all our various shows, we always did a year-end podcast, and nobody really had that type of podcast going anymore, so... Yeah,
it was always one of my favorite things to do. With the, I guess we're finally calling it on If It Bleeds, We Can Kill It. With that not being a thing anymore, I said, hey, who wants to do the best of show out of whoever's still got their stuff, going. And this one seemed like a better fit than Kaiju Transmissions or Days of Future podcast.
That's correct. So yeah, we're happy to be doing this. You never know. Some years are better than others. Some years you really don't even want to put a best together list. But I thought this was a good year, and I think we're going to have some good stuff going on tonight. But last but not least, I do not want to leave our last gravedigger on the roster here out in the cold too long. I don't want to leave him outside because he might end up like Jack Torrance at the end of The Shining, because he also is braving the sub-zero temperatures. We're talking about the man, the myth, the legend, Trev 3K. Trev, what's going on, man?
Oh, not too much. Also, just trying not to die from the extreme cold. But also glad to be here. Excited to be with everyone. Like everyone else, I always look forward to these kind of year-end wrap-ups and just a chance to shoot the shit with all of you. And here's my promise to all of you and the listeners. I promise not to choose Superman 2 as one of my favorite movies of 2018.
Yeah. Well, if the temperatures over there don't kill you, Trev, maybe the shock will when you do your next Days of Future podcast and you have to talk about Channing Tatum directing all the future X-Men films.
Yeah, we'll see.
Wouldn't it be great if, like, Fox, because they're, like, going out of business, they literally just opened up, like, the backlots and shit and let Channing Tatum shoot, like, 10 to 12 Ed Wood-style X-Men films?
Oh, man, I'd be all for it. You might as well do something crazy like that on the way out.
I know. I want to see, like, pictures and video of, like, the biggest most debaucherous, party going on the Fox backlot. Like it would be like when Hong Kong officially became a part of mainland China again. They have that big blowout celebration, and it's like whenever it hits midnight or whatever, everybody's freedom is over. I would love to fucking be there at that party.
I feel like it's probably more like Woodstock '99.
Oh, Limp Bizkit be playing. All right, so we're going to dive right into it. Since we have a full roster tonight, we made an executive decision for our favorite movies here. We did make a top 10 list each, but we're going to kind of run through our bottom 5 rather quickly. Just say the name and maybe a quick point or two about what you liked about those movies. So I figured we'd go around the table here. I'll get it started. I'm going to go number 10 on my list, and this is actually literally a movie I watched 48 hours ago, but I was glad I was able to cram it in because it's something I've actually been looking forward to a few years. And this was a little film called The Billionaire Boys Club with Taron Egerton and Ansel Elgort. And this was just a true life case of basically some Hollywood kids that started an investment firm, which is really a Ponzi scheme. And basically, because it was a Ponzi scheme, the results were too good to be true. They attracted lots of criminal types wanting to invest money with them, and they were money hungry, so they took the money, and a lot of stuff happened, murders, whatnot, just really crazy, based on a real life case, which I was really famous when I was a kid. And you might be saying to yourself, wow, those, Taron Egerton, Ansel Elgort, they're kind of big stars. How come I haven't heard about this movie? How come it has a DVD-only release, not even Blu-ray, DVD? Well, unfortunately, one of the con men that they run into in the film was played by none other than the late, great Kevin Spacey. So that's why this...
That'll do it.
Yep, that's why this movie... Who, to be fair, in the film, he portrays a flamboyant homosexual gentleman who has an implied flair for younger men. So that's why this film got buried. So... But just, a fun, almost like kind of like that Wolf of Wall Street vibe a little bit, but with a much darker edge. Yeah, Billionaire Boys Club.
I just, not to interrupt or anything, but I am interrupting. There's a weird thing where don't you feel like I don't know if anyone else feels like this. Ansel Elgort and Taron Egerton get like confused a lot, and I don't know if it's just like something where their names are kind of similar.
Names are too similar.
Yeah. And to have them in the same movie it seems like a kind of a weird play almost.
And another weird thing too was there was the rumors that they both at one point were in the running to play Han Solo, so that's even weirder.
It's not to say they both have names that sound like Star Wars characters.
Mm-hmm. They do.
But good for Ansel Elgort. He almost got typecast as a young kid who owes Kevin Spacey money.
Exactly.
God. I wonder how he's going to repay him. What?
You never know. And there also was just one last tidbit about this film. There was a fake Andy Warhol in it. So I always give props to movies. There's been many fake Andy Warhols in films over the years, played by a variety of different actors. But it's kind of so shocking in 2018, whatever, to see a movie that's still referencing Andy Warhol, because I feel like he's been completely forgotten in the pulp culture. So yeah, so to throw it around the table, Matt, what do you have on your number 10?
Oh man, so I'm assuming that some of these are going to be in some people's top 5, but I started with Overlord, which I mean zombies, Nazis, like all the cool stuff, right? J.J. Abrams produced it, and it was tied to the whole Cloverfield deal, and they were like, well, we're kind of going to make a Cloverfield movie, but kind of not. And thank God that they decided to not tie this to the Cloverfield quote-unquote expanded universe or whatever that is, because it's a really fun movie. Takes place on D-Day. You got some crazy Nazi zombies running around, and it's just really fun.
They were going to make it a Cloverfield movie, but then they were like, oh, wait, this is actually good.
Exactly right.
It was exactly too good for the name.
This next one I know will be on somebody's top 5. Sorry to bother you, so we'll save the details for that. But that's a really fun movie.
You're just skipping.
Yeah, man.
You're just going through because Goat did his number 10 and then
this is
passed it
number
off.
9.
And we're all doing
a number 10 right now.
Oh yeah, my bad. Well, this is number 10. I will stay with Overlord.
All right. By the way, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. No
Yeah.
problem. I just have this weird thing. I don't know why, but every time I check my thing, it tells me it's using the wrong mic, but it's really using the right mic. So if you guys can hear me, it's using the right mic. It's just weird. But was that all you had to say about Overlord, Matt?
Yeah, man.
All right.
Good.
I like the Overlord.
Yeah, Overlord's a fun. I didn't make my list, but it's definitely a fun movie that genre fans should check out.
Oh, definitely.
Haven't gotten to it yet.
Me either. Me and Byrd are on the naughty list. So since we're on the naughty list, I'll throw it to Byrd. Byrd, what do you got on number 10?
Number 10, I'm pretty sure it's going to show up higher than this for some other people. So we, won't get into too much detail, but that's Upgrade. By Lee Winnell. Just a really solid and enjoyable kind of biopunk type of movie. I mean, it'll tickle the RoboCop fan, the body horror fan, probably the Venom fan.
Yeah, they have low standards, so.
But no,
fired.
it's
real quick, Byrd, I can't remember. Did you see Venom? I can't remember.
I did not.
Okay.
He
Just-
thought
that was-
Venom
that
and
was a
Upgrade
wise
were the
decision.
same movie, though.
yeah.
He thought Venom and
That's
Upgrade
what
were
Byrd
the same.
thinks.
Logan Marshall Green, the guy that everyone knows is the fake Tom Hardy. He's really good in it. It's just really well done. And I'm sure a lot of you guys will be getting into this one later. So my number 10 is Upgrade.
Awesome. We'll roll on over to Jelly. Jelly, what you got at the 10 spot?
My 10th spot is a Netflix movie, Apostle. I don't know if this is higher on anyone else's list, so if it is, you guys can stop me. But when I wrote up my review for this movie on Letterboxd, I said "sweet sassy molassy." This was a movie I remember when I watched it. I kind of watched it like exactly the right time. It was like a really good change of pace for me. It's a little bit slower, a little bit more atmospheric, a little bit more brooding. But at the same time, with all those kind of like dark and grim words being thrown at it, the colors and the cinematography of this movie really pop. And it's like a really refreshing movie to look at. It just like all the colors and everything seems so natural. And that was really refreshing for me when I watched this. Dan Stevens has this great quality of him that's like he's got like a bit of an unintentional hilarity to him, and that breaks through here and there in this, and it kind of undercuts a moment or two, but also there's like a charm to it, and I don't know, it's just I felt like you watched the movie and you could tell as intense as it was at times, everyone had a great time making it, and it's just a really unique movie, and I really liked it a lot. So it was Apostle.
Awesome. Yeah, I heard about it.
I really like Apostle. Yep.
Yeah, it's a really good, especially compared to other Netflix films. But
Yeah.
just in general, it is a really fun horror film.
Nice. Have to check that out. Senior Trevor, KS un película in a DC spot.
Okay, I know I often get pegged as like the superhero nerd here or whatever, but surprisingly enough, my number 10 is the only superhero film that makes my list. It's probably not the one. Oh no, wait, that's a total lie. But I mean, in terms of like the early releases, it's the one that like the summer year like months, you might have thought it was not the one I would have picked, and that's Incredibles 2. It's my number 10. I liked this much more than any of the MCU movies this year. I don't know. There's a lot of reasons to be worried about Incredibles 2. You know, Pixar hasn't been as strong lately. There was the long gap in between. There was just is it just going to be more of the same? And I guess ultimately it is more of the same, but you're just kind of reminded that that's kind of okay because Brad Bird really has this formula down. He's still making better Fantastic Four movies than anyone else has been able to make. And I thought, like, even though it's, it wasn't highly original, it didn't blow me away in terms of, wow, I didn't expect to see that as the sequel. It was just great to spend time with these characters again and be reminded of how much fun it was the first time and kind of go back to that world. And actually, in retrospect, the long wait would have helped actually just make you a little nostalgic for it. If this had come out maybe 2 years after Incredibles, I might have been like, well, that's kind of like just more of the same. But that long wait really made it feel like, wow, I'm coming back to something I loved before and hadn't had a chance to revisit in a while. So now I'm kind of hoping Incredibles 3 is like another 8 or 9 years down the road.
Yeah,
it's another solid pick.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it too. I saw it very late in its theatrical run, and I'm glad I caught it because still haven't seen the first Incredibles, which I got to remedy that quick. So, going around the block again. Number 9 on my list, I don't have too much to say, is the Steven Soderbergh horror movie Unsane. There was a lot of hype about this in terms of being shot on, I guess, iPhones or something. Don't let that scare you off, horror fans. It's very, it has a good atmosphere and look. It doesn't look like something that's super cheaply shot. There's a couple scenes where you can tell kind of the colors are a little drab. And there's a couple scenes where you can tell they use a fisheye lens. But other than that, there's nothing about this movie to not make you think it's, a regular, budgeted horror film. And don't want to say too much because it's just one of those movies right from the bat. It's the basic premises. Is the main character crazy or is she not crazy? Is she getting framed? Is she whatever in this insane asylum? And for being a claustrophobic thriller, I thought they really kind of upped it, especially in the third act. And the third act really just took me back to even older, horror films from the 80s and whatnot. So I would say Unsane's really good, even though it has a really prestigious actress in the lead. It definitely has some really cool, exploitation, horror vibes to it. So I definitely recommend Unsane to all the horror heads out there. Matt,
cool. That's what I missed. That's what I missed and still want to see. I really like Soderbergh.
Yeah. So. I didn't groove on it as much as Goat, but it's one of those movies where I fall down on it where I'm like, I could see either view. If you really liked it, yeah, sure. There's definitely stuff to like in it, and if you really didn't, yeah, there's stuff that's not going to rub everyone the right way. So I came down a little more in the middle on it, but yeah, Claire Foy is really good in it.
Yeah, she is. Going around the block again, Matt, what do you have in your number 9 slot?
Sorry to bother you, which I know is going to be much higher on a few other people's lists, but...
Well, Matt, just let me quickly jump in and say, Sorry to Bother You is also my number 9, so we can kind of double team this one. So.
Sweet. Look, this movie goes in places that you're just not prepared for and ready, and it's just... There's so much inherent quirkiness and goofiness about it, and everything about it really works very well. Also, we get some cool stuff from Danny Glover, who's, he feels like a national treasure at this point. So, really fun movie. I watched it with a couple of my friends, and everybody seemed to really enjoy it. And, Sorry to Bother You is great.
Yeah, it's exactly that. Like I said, I'm sure other people are going to talk about it a little higher, so I'll just say it's not the movie you think it is going in, and I was actually prepared to just enjoy the movie I thought, because if you just watched the trailer, I would have liked that movie too. But It goes in a totally different direction that you just can't see coming, and it's got a mind-blowing final act, and it's the kind of film that I'm pretty sure for the next 10 or so years, as long as you can kind of keep it a secret, it's going to be a movie I'm going to have a lot of fun introducing to a lot of people. Be like, oh, you haven't seen this? Well, we got to watch this, and then just watch their face as the secrets get unveiled.
Yeah, it's higher on my list, so I'll be talking about it.
It's higher on my list too.
Yeah, no, it's.
So it's on everybody's list but mine, and that's only because I haven't seen it. So I definitely got to get on this one quicker than later. So yeah, Byrd, what do you got?
So my I think I'm the only person that has this anywhere on a list, but my number 9 is Black Panther. Cue all of the post-Oscar nominations backlash. But
you just racially obligated to put it on.
No, I mean, it was definitely enjoyable to see something that was like a big pop culture moment, and seeing, like grandparents and stuff, going to see this movie. But I mean, for me, it's just, it was kind of refreshing, at least for me, to see a Marvel movie actually have some real kind of, I guess, social substance. And I don't think that it's up there with Winter Soldier or anything like that, but I just felt like it was a kind of a solid change of pace. It wasn't quite as goofy as some of the stuff that we have been getting from the MCU at that point, and it was an early release, so it was really just a nice way to kick things off for me in 2018. And as bad as some of the CG is, I think that's the most common complaint across the board with it. I really liked the the confidence in which it portrays its universe, and Wakanda is like Jack Kirby drawings come to life. So I that's my my number 9. And Michael B. Jordan's Killmonger is still one of my favorite characters in a movie this year. So
yeah,
there you have it.
Yeah, I wish he wore that mask more because it looked awesome. Also, Black Panther has an awesome 3D Blu-ray out there. If anybody listening cares about that, do yourself the favor, spend the $20 and import it from the UK. So I think in the number 9 spot, we just have Jelly left on the list. Jelly, what you got in number 9?
Number 9 is another Netflix movie. But
what are you, a Netflix shill now?
Yeah, apparently.
I'm going to have to induce these Cannes Film Festival rules and tell Jelly no more Netflix.
It's a movie that it's listed as 2017, but I don't think anyone was able to see it until 2018. It's called The Ritual. It's a little tense, atmospheric horror movie. It gets kind of psychological, slasher, monster, all throughout its runtime. It plays off things like from the Blair Witch while not skimping on anything without spoiling it too much. It's kind of rare for me that a horror movie scares me. And even though I wouldn't say that the final act of this is scary, I'd say the final act of this kind of gets more monster movie and a little bit more just like kind of almost action-y. The middle of this movie is genuinely unnerving and had my heart kind of racing a few different times. It's really, really good. I really liked it a lot. I saw it fairly early in the year, but yeah, it's if you're a fan of any of those kinds of horror movies that I mentioned, like a psychological backwoods slasher monster movie, if that sounds appealing to you, definitely check out The Ritual.
Awesome.
Yeah, The Ritual's
Really
pretty
cool
sweet.
monster in that.
Yeah, great design. And then I know that like Byrd and Jelly are weirdos about this and they don't like The Descent, but I would say that it would actually make an awesome double feature with The Descent, because it's kind of like you got the all women version and the all men version of this kind of thing, and so maybe horror fans could do it like that.
Nice. All right, so moving on to the number 8 spot is one of my picks I'm sure to be ridiculed for, but I don't care. I'm going to lay it out there. I really enjoyed the film Gotti this summer. I'm a big John Travolta fan. Been waiting for him. He's been doing a lot of direct-to-video stuff. I wanted to see a role he could actually sink his chops back into, and I think he did it good in this one of playing John Gotti from like roughly the age of, I guess, probably like late 30s to all the time he passed away in prison with prosthetics on to depict the cancer and just all kinds of stuff. I mean, I think he did a great job. Stacy Keach was awesome in this too. Just your basic mob movie. I think a lot of people gave this movie shit for being very derivative of Goodfellas, but I think if you kind of like connect the dots, I think you'll kind of understand that a lot of fucking stuff in Goodfellas was, it was the Henry Hill situation, but there's like a lot of similarities between the story of John Gotti and the stuff that Henry Hill went through and informed on and all that. So like, to me, that's not like the most damning criticism the way it is for some people. And it's been years and years since we had a mob movie, so I'm not going to join in the hate. I'm going to give a thumbs up to Gotti. I enjoyed it. Matt, what do you have in number 8 spot?
I have a feeling this will be higher on somebody's list too, so feel free to stop me. But I have Mandy as being my my number 8 film. Anybody got that?
Maybe.
I mean, yeah, Mandy will be talked about.
Yeah. So I mean, the deal with Mandy, the things that I loved about it, cinematography, beautiful. Like it goes from being very much in the realism space to like just surreal and crazy imagery, and then you got Nicolas Cage being himself and just doing all the Nicolas Cage stuff, and I don't think you can say a bad thing about that. So I'll leave the further discussion to the top 5 stuff, but Mandy came in at number 8.
Yeah, Mandy's good. It has it weirdly has like a lot of heart to it too, in a way.
Yeah, it does, and it like the first half of the movie feels very different from the second half, and I don't think that's a bad thing. There's some cool change of pace that it does.
I agree. Byrd, what do you got?
Okay, so my number this is 8, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, my number 8 is Apostle. Which Jelly just talked about. I don't have too much to add to what he said. It really kind of did everything that I wanted it to, and I'm really into the kind of folk horror kind of movies, stuff like The Wicker Man and Blood on Satan's Claw, The Witch, and this was another movie kind of in that wheelhouse, and I just really enjoyed it. That one is on Netflix. Again, if anyone out there hasn't heard of it, that one's easy to find if you have Netflix. So
awesome. Jelly, what you got rolling at number 8?
I guess we'll have to change Marvel Trev to Marvel Jelly.
Oh.
I've got Avengers Infinity War. I run really hot and cold on the MCU to the point where, like, I've given up kind of caring about the movies and the universe as a whole. And in a way, that's kind of really helped me to more appreciate the ones that I like. It's kind of easier for me to just take it movie to movie. And if I find one or another like that to be overhyped, like Black Panther or even Thor Ragnarok, which I liked quite a bit, but I just thought like it got kind of insanely rave reviews, and I was just like, oh, it was good, you know. I can just kind of focus more on like the standouts of the 20 movies that exist that I do really, really like. And this was one of them. Thanos is just like the best villain they've created in 20 movies. He absolutely delivered. The relationships were all there, and like I don't care that they were fake out deaths, because like, I mean, how many movies do we watch where we already know the ending and it's already spoiled and all that stuff? In this movie, this movie itself, the deaths all matter and have an impact, and it all works. And I really, really got swept up in this movie, and it's one of the few movies I've watched more than once this year, and I really liked it a lot.
It's higher on my list, so I'll have more to say on that later.
Yeah, it was all right.
It does have the worst, maybe the worst character I've seen in a movie this year. At least in a movie I liked.
Oh.
I know the one you're talking about.
I guess we'll save that for the next time somebody brings it up. But Trev, what do you have at number 8?
So my number 8 is Upgrade, the Lee Wanell film. This was already talked about it earlier, but yeah, it totally feels like a cool like 80s sci-fi strange action film that got somehow someone accidentally tripped and fell, and it fell into a sewer while they were taking it to the theater, and we just uncovered it. It's like this time vault or something. So anybody who fans of this show in particular who love those kind of messed up 80s body horror sci-fi Verhoeven kind of flicks will probably definitely be able to get down with this one. So it definitely makes me excited to see, more from Leigh Whannell. I think I already liked him, but this seemed like such a step up in terms of filmmaking skill that now, the announcement that he's doing Invisible Man seems like really exciting after seeing what he could do with this. So, upgrade.
I agree completely. All right, coming around the horn again. Number 7, just a movie I don't have a whole lot to say, but I got Bohemian Rhapsody, a movie that I think blew a lot of people away when it first came out, and then there was like a lot of backlash about, oh, it's not that good of a movie, or it's not that good of a biopic, but either way, it's made a ton of money. I just thought it was interesting.
Well, now they're wrestling with the Bryan Singer problem, too.
Right, which, as people were seeing it in the theater for the third and fourth time, they didn't have a problem with. But when it comes to giving awards out, all of a sudden, we got morals. But, I just, I really liked the movie. I think it was a little bit different than other musical biopics. I liked how they kind of focused on some bits in the band's history, kind of showing the creation of some of their more famous songs. I thought that was unique, and just as a film character, period, I really enjoyed the Freddie Mercury character, going from just a kind of socially awkward, I guess, teen, early 20s guy to not really going anywhere musically, to just getting in this band and just like one of the the most beloved rock singers of all time. Is like, I like how the movie kind of frames it. It's almost like a little bit of a fairy tale and whatnot. So yeah, I thought there was a lot to like about Bohemian Rhapsody. Matt, what do you got on number 7 list?
Hereditary. I kind of went in expecting, well, not to like it as much, but it's really, really well done, and it's just extremely, I guess, mean-spirited at times, and that kind of draws you in. I think my biggest issue with the film would be the way that it ends, and we might talk about that because I fully expect this to be on somebody else's list. But yeah, it's a great horror film, and I think the character dynamics work really well, and Toni Collette, she kills it. She absolutely kills this film, and it's one of those things that from start to finish, I was honestly riveted, and up until that last segment at the end. But yeah, it's a great movie, and if you haven't seen it, you definitely should.
Matt, you and I are on like a wavelength because Hereditary is also my number 7. So I'll just quickly jump in and say, yeah, everything Matt said is dead on. It's a fantastic horror film. It's always exciting to see a cool horror debut, kind of a new voice. Also exciting whenever a film gets a lot of hype on the festival circuit and then actually lives up to that hype. That doesn't always happen. Sometimes you get your expectations up a little too high. And yeah, one of the biggest compliments I can pay this film is that even that a diehard horror fan, that it's pretty hard to impress me and make me scared. But I was getting anxious watching this in the theater. There's some moments that really unsettled me. And yeah. Oh, and also, yes, can we finally stop talking about Meryl Streep and start talking about Toni Collette more as a culture? Because she's, I think, probably I would say there's a strong argument to be made that she's the best actress working right now.
Yeah, she's always good.
Mm-hmm.
I have Hereditary higher.
Yeah,
I have it much higher. So yeah, we'll be getting there.
Yeah, it's a really good movie. I enjoyed it as well. Jelly, what do you got?
My number 7 was already talked about a little bit, but it's Incredibles 2. I think a lot of times when you see a movie, the circumstances that you see it under can obviously have a pretty big effect on just how you feel about the movie. This was the first movie I took my daughter to see in a theater, and it just like kind of getting to see a movie like through kind of someone else's eyes almost a little bit, and some of the extra humor that I got out of it, like there's a scene in the movie where the baby is fighting a raccoon, and it's funny enough on its own, but then as the whole audience is laughing, my daughter was like, "Why is everyone laughing? This isn't funny. This is just good." So like you get that kind of like extra kick of humor out of it, but also just on its own, like I had been getting very cold on Pixar lately. I'd been growing very tired of them just constantly like being like, I call them tearsploitation, where they just want to make adults cry and make them sad that their childhood is over. This is finally the Pixar that I like back again, which is it's just a fun adventure movie that like has some adult themes but balances all that better with a sense of wonder and awe and some silly humor, and it all worked so much better for me than any Pixar movie of the last like since Toy Story 3. So yeah, my number 7 is Incredibles 2.
Awesome. Trev, what do you got for number 7?
Well, Hereditary.
Oh, that's right. My bad. Yeah. So have we made the rounds on number 7? Everybody did a number 7?
Did Byrd?
Did I do number 7?
Oh.
I don't know if you did.
Did Byrd do
it? I don't know. Byrd, did you talk about your number 7?
I don't think Byrd.
Okay, no. I think I need to do my number 7.
Okay, go ahead,
which is Black Klansman.
Ooh.
Entertaining, tragic, funny, relevant, sadly. These are all words that spring to mind. The cast is great. John David Washington, Adam Driver, Topher Grace, just really kill it. And more than anything, this is the first movie in a few years that, well, I guess the first non-documentary movie in a few years from Spike Lee that remind you, like, hey, this guy's insane, but he also, like, when he puts his mind to it and can focus on something, he's actually a good filmmaker, and that's easy to forget. He's kind of like the Black Woody Allen, where he makes like a movie a year, and like there's maybe 1 or 2 every 10 years that's actually really good. And this is his turn for this decade. We'll see what else he has in store. Although I have heard Chirac was good, but yeah, if you've forgotten, you can make a good movie. Black Klansman is it.
Yeah,
I like Black Klansman.
Yeah, I only saw it just like a week ago, and yeah, it's really good. Yeah, and the one that, I mean, obviously the film had a great reputation, but I'm actually a fan of the main actor in it, John David Washington. I think he's one of the more underrated up and coming actors. I think he's going to be big.
Yeah, he's the son of Denzel Washington.
It is correct, and it's kind of weird because when you first see them, you kind of like. I don't know how, like, you don't really see the resemblance, but then when you see him acting, and especially I think when you kind of hear the voice a little bit, certain words, you're like, yeah, that's definitely.
Yeah, they share some mannerisms, but yeah, no, Black Klansman is great. I know me and Jelly disagreed a little bit about the last couple minutes, which is, I'll just say it's harrowing in a way that. I don't know. It's just sad. I mean, watch this on a double bill with Detroit, and
oh god,
try to feel your soul crushed.
I actually have this higher, but yeah, that last couple minutes, woof.
That's brutal. All right, so going in the number 6 spot again. Not a whole lot to say. This is just a type of movie that used to be made like a lot. And they don't make too much anymore, so I kind of enjoyed this genre coming back. And I'm talking about the kind of espionage spy thriller Red Sparrow, starring Jennifer Lawrence. I don't like all her movies, but I like a lot of her performances. And I thought she did like a really from A to Z great performance. The movie starts out, she's a ballerina, her leg gets broke, all this shit happens, she gets... basically recruited into the KGB and whatnot, becomes a spy and all kinds of shit. And I know the film had a bad reputation for being too I guess, sexually explicit or violence and whatnot, but for me, everything hit home. I'm also a big Joel Edgerton fan. I thought he was great in this too, so as dark and grimy and everything as it was, I really enjoyed from beginning to end all the twists and turns and everything in Red Sparrow. So yeah, so that's my number 6. Matt, what you got in the number 6 spot?
I have Apostle, and one of the things, I mean, we'll talk about this more, I'm sure, but one of the things that appeals to me specifically is because I do happen to go to church and participate in faith, and I always like seeing how that plays out when you're dealing with things like the occult and how the abuse of religion and the control and the things that happen that go along with it. And this movie very much plays those things up, and it does it in a really, I mean, just fantastic and also haunting fashion. Also, I mean, Gareth Evans, I love. I just saw these actually this year, but The Raid 1 and 2. I mean, those are also movies that he directed, and those are two. Yeah, he's great. I mean, I don't think I can say anything negative about that. But Apostle is, it's good. We'll talk about it more in a sec.
Awesome, Byrd. What do you got at number 6?
Number 6, I have Mandy. And I'm pretty sure this is going to pop up again, so I won't say too much. But it was just refreshing to me. I loved the aesthetic. Nicolas Cage, you get every version of Nicolas Cage in this. You get the over-the-top Nicolas Cage. You get the actually very good dramatic actor Nicolas Cage. And I'd seen this director's previous movie, the Under the Black Rainbow, and I didn't really care much for it, but Mandy I was really impressed by, it just combines so many things, horror, revenge, and like even a little bit of like Lovecraftian elements. I mean, it just puts them all together in a really unique way. And it's not just someone, trying to be another David Lynch. It's like, it's a weird in a way that's uniquely its own. And that's all I really have to say about it for now. It was one of the big surprises for me this year because, you never know what you're going to get when you get these Nicolas Cage indie genre movies. It seems like they can go one way or the other, but Mandy was really good.
Yeah, it was. And speaking of surprises with Mandy, I thought it was very cool that it was like one of the real indie success stories in terms of it had very, very limited theatrical bookings, and they did so well. They kept adding more and more, and all these weird impromptu screenings. Like I even saw there was one I believe was like a screening on like an inflatable screen on a rooftop in LA. It was so crazy. Like it was really cool, I thought, to see the kind of Mandy mania that was going on earlier this year.
And as strange as of a movie as it is, it's kind of like I said when it was brought up earlier, I think it does have like an actual kind of heart to it that a lot of people can connect to, and that's something that a lot of these more surrealist kind of movies don't have.
Right.
And so, I think it connected to people in a way that was unexpected.
Most definitely. So, Jelly, what do you got on the number 6?
I don't have anything new to say about this one that anyone else hasn't already said, but my number 6 is Upgrade. Just funny, smart-ish. I mean, for this kind of movie. Action-packed, well-written, enough of a heart to kind of pull you through and string you through it. And Logan Marshall Green gives a hell of a performance. This is one I haven't had a chance to revisit yet, but like I'm kind of like looking forward to being able to revisit it. It's like if Monkey Shines was awesome.
One of my friends said it was like John Wick had a baby with Black Mirror.
Wow. Trev, what do you got on your number 6 spot?
My number 6 spot is one that I'm fairly sure this will be the only time it's talked about because I think only one other person here saw it, and I know he wasn't super hot on it. But my number 6 is the remake of Suspiria. So this is, I don't know, this struck like a lot of like what I look for in horror. I'm not here to even say it's perfect, because I'll admit there's some flaws to it. I do think it's a little long, and I think it kind of doesn't actually accomplish some of the themes it's trying to go for. But that's also part of what I like about it, is that it's just so damn ambitious. And I'm at a point now where I kind of value ambition over a lot of other stuff in filmmaking. And so I was just kind of really impressed with this idea of taking, the classic Argento film, which, yes, is obviously still better, but just taking that and saying, hey, instead of just doing like a total rip of that, let's just take the general idea of it and go completely our own way, make almost the inverse of that film. So whereas the Argento film is really bright and colorful, we'll make this kind of muted and a little darker. Whereas that one is short, we'll make this kind of longer. This one will be more political, have more deep themes. That one, like, it's not style over substance. This is much more substance over style, and yet also still contains some of the most brutal imagery and one of the most horrifying death scenes of the year. Awesome performances, just a really unique take on the source material, and one that I think is like a really cool companion piece to the original. I look forward to, over the years, kind of offering them up to people as a kind of a neat little double bill. So I was really impressed with this, and it's even like I see how divisive it is. It's that kind of film that a lot of people love it and a lot of people hate it, and even that makes it kind of even cooler to me, because that usually means you're doing something right in art if you're getting those kind of extreme reactions.
Yeah, Trev.
That's what they said about the Godzilla anime.
Oh.
All I was gonna say is it didn't get a strong reaction from me one way or the other. It was just I wasn't into it, but I didn't hate it, and I don't know. I just thought it was kind of boring and didn't care much. But I definitely agree with like the positives that Trev said, in that, you take on a movie like Suspiria, you better not just be some hack with no originality or vision for it, and that's definitely not what this is. It's a filmmaker making his version of something and really putting his own unique spin on it that is saying something. It didn't land for me personally, but I mean, everything Trev said is accurate in that it's not just this hackneyed, we're going to remake Suspiria just because kind of thing. Like it does have a point to it.
Well, I think it's the kind of film that there's probably not going to be anybody out there who just kind of likes it, right? If it's the kind of film where if it's on your wavelength, you're going to love it. So I think I think that's kind of admirable too.
Yeah, my main gripe with this movie, well, first of all, is I haven't seen it, but my main gripe was this.
Pretty good gripe.
Yeah, this movie was. This wasn't a movie that was released as much as it escaped, and I just glanced at the box office, which worldwide was $6 million. And after months and months of hype, I remember months before this even came out, there was talk of maybe Oscar talk, because of course the director Luca Guadagnino, or whatever his name is, They Call Me by Your Name, and like, when it came down to it, they basically, Amazon, the distributor, released Beautiful Boy, which it's not on my list, but I did enjoy that movie as well. They kind of just swept Suspiria away to say, okay, Beautiful Boy is our Oscar, whatever, and we're going to push this hard. And Beautiful Boy came out after Suspiria, and Beautiful Boy is already on Amazon Prime. I think that's just, make it available for awards consideration. But Trev, I was going to ask you, man, considering that they really didn't make any money off Suspiria, and they didn't try to. Do you think this was a case where, instead of all this months of hype and then a theatrical release, then waiting 3 months for, it to, because actually today, January 29th, it's finally coming out on Blu-ray, and then whenever it comes on Amazon Prime.
I got mine today.
Yeah. Do you think this would have been one of those cases where, because the box office honestly was chump change to Amazon, maybe with all that hype that this movie had going for it for a while, they should have just dumped it straight on, not dumped it, but put it straight on Prime, so it kind of could have had that Netflix, like, mushroom cloud reception and got that hype that way,
I mean, maybe. I think I do. I'm glad I got to see it on the big screen. But yeah, I don't know. It could have been maybe more of a sleeper hit in streaming. I don't know. I really think it is the kind of thing. It's a double-edged sword. I think it's really cool they let him make the movie he wanted to make and didn't step in. And then I also think at the end of the day, when they looked at the product, they were probably expecting something more like what Argento originally delivered. And they're like, wait, you're giving us a really heady, like, bizarre political allegory that requires a lot of essays and stuff afterwards. So sure just freaked him out, and it is what it is. But I think it's already finding its following, and ultimately the box office doesn't matter to me too much in the long run, because it's just I'm already seeing diehard fans have long discussions about it, and that'll continue on. So whatever. Oops, they're bad.
I do think it's weird that they did, like, I heard a lot about this for a while, and then it was like, all right, you can see it at 4 p.m. on Tuesday, and if you don't, then tough shit.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, once you guys see it, you'll get, like, if they put this out and give it a big mainstream release, I think there would have been a bigger backlash against it. I think playing it to an art crowd is probably the right move to make on a 2.5 hour film like this. So they were probably nervous about throwing it out there for the regular popcorn munchers, because it probably would have got a much more visceral anti-reaction.
It would have been Mother Part 2.
Yeah.
So we made it relatively quickly through 10 through 6. We'll take a slight break from the favorites here, because I don't like to end any episode on a negative note. But real quick, we'll go around the table. What was your least favorite or your most disappointing movie of 2018? Myself, I'm just going to say Shane Black's The Predator. They filmed this movie more or less twice. This was almost like a solo situation. And from what I've seen and heard, I don't think either version would have been very good. And the final version, it starts out with a pretty cool predator killing a lot of people, and then we quickly segue to a much lamer CGI predator. And to me, the rest of the movie drugs. So, I'm definitely giving not even like a hateful thumbs down, but a very disappointed thumbs down to The Predator. Matt,
I hated The Predator.
Yeah.
Not good.
My favorite comment about The Predator was that it doesn't feel like a Shane Black movie. It feels like the movie Shane Black's character from the first Predator movie would make.
Right. I would agree with that.
Jeez, you got a big pussy.
Yeah, if that guy made a Predator movie, it's The Predator.
This is going to be one that I think I'm going to have a lot of agreement on, and that's Godzilla City on the Edge of Battle.
Fuck that movie.
Yeah, I mean, as one of a few people in this on this episode today that are diehard Godzilla fans, this is this is the worst thing the franchise has ever churned out, and it is exasperating. The quality of writing, the quality of animation, the fact that it promises a Mechagodzilla that doesn't actually even show up and ends up being a literal city. And the most frustrating thing for me as a fan is that I see people trying to stretch to great lengths in order to find some sort of artistic value in this film. And unfortunately, all three, the first movie that came out, this movie, and the one that came out actually in just recently, Planet Eater, they are the three worst Godzilla anythings ever. And don't watch it.
It's awful. I'm gonna piggyback on that because this is my. It's weird because Goat said most disappointing. After the first one, this was not a disappointment anymore. But yeah, this was my most hated movie of the year. I mean, I hated this thing so much that it was like a massive indifference kind of hatred that like I've never experienced with any Godzilla anything before. Every time we've had a major like monster release since Matt and Byrd have been doing their podcast, I've kind of made it a point to either get on their show or try to see the movie and get on their show. I think I like missed like Rampage and maybe Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, which was also a huge piece of shit. But I always try to get on, and this movie, like I saw it and they were like, "Hey, want to record with us?" And I was like, "No."
You came back for the third one.
Yeah, I did because that one actually had like some things to talk about that were hateable. This was just a blank slate of awful. It's a mind-bogglingly terrible experience, and this whole experiment was absolutely atrocious. There's a really good article on Sci-Fi that it was written by your buddy Byrd.
Patrick Galvan.
Patrick Galvan. Yeah.
Yeah. but that it kind of details what failed so badly about these anime movies, and the basic idea is it comes down to there actually are occasionally a couple of decent ideas, but they're all thrust to the side in favor of just spouting like made up science. And it's just excruciating to watch. I hated every second of it.
And just to clarify, these are Godzilla films that are animated. They call them animes. And in America, they're kind of rolled out to some fanfare on Netflix.
They're Netflix originals everywhere except for Japan, I think. So
gotcha. But do I have this right, or I have this screwed up? Even though these are animated films, it seems like it's really hitting like a nerve with the fans, because even though it's an animated film, it's supposed to be within continuity of the live action films, right?
No.
No?
Nah, it's totally.
And that's weird because the live action movies don't have much continuity, anyways. But yeah, they are. It's not like a thing where Toho is saying that they're not Godzilla movies. Like, they are considered the 32nd, 33rd, and 34th entries in the franchise. Right. And yeah, they're just putrid sacks of shit.
Talk about a waste of the medium too, because I mean I'm a fan of anime. I mean, I watch enough of it, Attack on Titan and My Hero Academia and different things, and the movie doesn't give you anything to latch onto visually at all. 3D animation is atrocious, and every time Godzilla takes a step, it's like, is he actually moving or is the character just like static?
Oh, you know what's crazy too? I'm sorry, because it's if I don't say it, I'm gonna lose it. Because I thought of it and then I lost it, and then I'm thinking of it right now. I just am watching, like, I'm in the middle basically of Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind.
Yep.
And
Miyazaki film.
Yeah, there's a lot of similarities in terms of the setting. You know, being an Earth that is poisonous, that's far-flung future that humanity's trying to somewhat reclaim. And setting aside the different goals, right, you know, of like the difference between like kind of like a movie about like hope and the savior of humanity versus a movie about like how everyone sucks ass and deserves to die. Setting aside that, just the use of animation and the use of the setting, like Nausicaa is this like really amazing use of the setting of an Earth that is no longer inhabitable. And yeah, the Godzilla anime is just like, hey, here's this crazy whole planet that is totally different than the one that you know, and everyone's just going to stand inside of hallways.
Yeah, he's. I mean, that's very accurate, and you know that Toho was allowing them to basically, like, the first film introduces a bunch of monsters, but it does it in the first 5 minutes, and it tells you with a lot of exposition really quickly that all these different monsters showed up and attacked, and eventually Godzilla killed those monsters, but we never see any of those things. And this film kind of continues with that, where we don't get a lot of anything happening, to be honest. And the final battle is like Godzilla blows the city up and falls asleep, and I mean it's one of those things where
he falls asleep.
Yeah, that's actually a common theme in this series. He does it multiple times. He does it in the first film, the second film, and he awakes from his nap in the third film.
He's like a cute, sleepy old man.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely has that film, and it's just one of those things where I don't know, man. I am the guy that if anybody's gonna like it, I like anime, I like Godzilla. Just give me something, and I could have made some excuse to enjoy something within the film. But this does none of those things.
Wow. It sounds. Byrd, do you have another pick, or did you also equally hate this shitty Godzilla?
Yeah. I mean, my pick would be Godzilla City on the Edge of Battle, Part 2 of the anime trilogy. The first and third parts aren't very good, but this one especially is just a waste of everybody's time, including the people that made it. And I don't have much to add to what they said. I never thought I would get such a small amount of enjoyment from a Godzilla anything as I did this. It's the worst movie in the series of 34. So I mean, let that speak for itself. I mean, I guess we're gonna go to Trev next, so I'll segue into that by saying Trev doesn't have the attachment to Godzilla that we do, and he was smart enough to bail after the first entry in this, and I'll let him take it away with whatever the heck his worst movie of the year was.
Yeah, well, I thought about that because I was pretty sure you guys were all going to pick that Godzilla travesty as your least favorite. And I said, I only watched the first one. I hated it. And in all honesty, that probably is the worst movie I watched this year was the first Godzilla anime. But because I didn't watch the other two and because I knew you guys were going to cover it, I decided I'd shine the spotlight on something else here and say my other least favorite film of the year is another Netflix dump out, and that's Cloverfield Paradox.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Also really early in the year.
I forgot all about that. I mean, the Godzilla is still mine, but yeah, since none of us talked about it, yeah, you got to get this one in.
Well, I mean, so, in the long run in the history books, the story of Cloverfield Paradox will always be a kind of cool. And I mean, I give it up to them. The fact that, it was announced with a surprise, Super Bowl trailer, and the trailer was like, at the end of the game, this is actually going to be online. That's pretty cool. You got to hand it to them. And the thing is, that tricked a lot of us because we were all like, oh, shit, I got to go watch this new Cloverfield movie. And then the problem was we all watched this new Cloverfield movie. And it is just terrible. And, the thing is, like, those Godzilla animes, they might be horrible, but at least you could point at that and say, well, that's the franchise trying something new or whatever. The bad thing about Cloverfield Paradox is it's just the laziest kind of sci-fi garbage. It offers no original storytelling. It's just the same shit we've seen done in movies like Sunshine and Event Horizon and done way better. It just feels so... I guess it's not cheap, but I mean, it feels like it was made for Sci-Fi Channel, let alone that it was ever meant to be like an actual theatrical film. And characters aren't interesting. Plot's terrible. It's so embarrassing. And then that final shot to tie it into Cloverfield. Oof. I was already not a huge fan of the way the previous Cloverfield film had those like little cute little like, oh, we're trying to tie it in. I just felt that was unnecessary. This is like far, far worse. Just good Lord. Thank God Bad Robot rebounded with a couple better movies later in the year because this is almost like they should have had their movie keys taken away from them after this one.
Yeah.
No, yeah, it's just like they're trying to make a franchise in the laziest way of, oh, how can we like do what can we come up with to connect this?
Yeah.
And yeah, it's
this would be a bad movie no
it's
matter
a fake
what.
franchise. It's not real. Yeah. The Cloverfield franchise isn't real, and if the rumors that Overlord was going to be tied in at some point are true, then I don't know. I mean, maybe the reaction to this might have made them say, like, okay, maybe we should just like leave it alone, because this and Cloverfield Lane were like changed. This one was changed in the middle of filming, and like it was like a murder mystery, and then it turned into this weird. I don't know what you call it.
Well, obviously,
I'm glad you brought this up, though, because I literally forgot about this.
Obviously, that strategy really worked out for everyone involved.
And for some reason, it's getting a Blu-ray release.
Yeah, not only is it getting a Blu-ray release, Byrd, but you can actually buy the 3-pack of the Cloverfield franchise. I saw that listing on Blu-ray.com yesterday. Yeah. So I feel...
Yeah, it was terrible.
Yeah. I feel a little better now. I feel we got all our negativity out, So that's good. So let's jump back into being positive here in the graveyard. I'm going to my number 5 pick on my list. Probably don't have too lot to say about this because this isn't a very plot-heavy film, but this was a very nostalgic horror film, and I'm talking about The Strangers Prey at Night, a very loose sequel to The Strangers, which came out about 10 years ago. This one takes place with the... What's funny?
Was it that long ago?
Yeah,
10 years.
Yeah, it was 10 years, yeah.
Oh, jeez.
So it's the loose connection is it's the 3 main killers from The Strangers, but now they're in a trailer park and they're hunting a family. And yeah, very creepy. The trailer park setting I thought was great. This is just a real, nostalgic, both ear and eye candy film. The director was paying homage to a lot of really cool 80s horror films. So yeah, I really like Strangers Prey at Night. Got the Blu-ray sitting on the shelf. I need to give it a rewatch very soon. So Matt, what do you got creeping
the pool
on?
Sequence, the pool sequence in Strangers Prey at Night is really, really awesome.
Yeah,
it's like the highlight.
Yeah.
This is another one I missed.
Oh, Byrd, you got to see this, buddy, for real.
I like the first movie a lot.
Yeah.
This is trashier. I mean,
it's just to quickly say, we'll let Matt go to his number 5 in a second. But yeah, I'll just quickly say, because I don't have Strangers on my list, but I really enjoyed it too. And I think it is that perfect thing where this is what I like to see from a franchise, especially if you're going to wait 10 years, is come back with a completely different stylistic approach and just, say like, okay, same idea, but let's go in a total different vibe with it. And I thought it was like really fun. And like again, just a nice companion piece to the original.
Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. Matt, what do you have for number 5?
Black Klansman. Man, this look, watching the movie and the it's got the perfect balance of the comedic stuff and the stuff that just is a total gut punch, and it just like makes you look at the world around you, evaluate things differently, realize that people actually do face the prejudice that they do and the racism and all those different things. But it also does it in a way that I think is receptible by people. We watch it, we can take it in, and it presents it in a way that's honestly entertaining, but and engaging and funny, and also horrifying all at once. And then the end, there's this thing that happens at the very end that kind of comes out of nowhere. And for me, like I actually had to sit there downstairs in my basement and just be alone for a second, because I just was not prepared for that. And it does something when a movie does that. I think it's accomplishing what it set out to do. And I mean, it's a very powerful, and unfortunately, it's a necessary film right now. And I really enjoyed it.
I saw it with a mostly black audience, and when we got out, it was like people were sobbing.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly did. I shed some tears at the very end, because it was like, and I haven't felt that way towards any other film this year. And I, it's one of those things where like just that total gut punch. And the thing is, it works so well, and it gets you to think after the movie's ended. Like, you're not just like, okay, I'm going to go home now. Like, it sticks with you.
Yeah, it does. It's one of those things, 2-3 days later, just one of those movies where just certain scenes, I feel like, just stay in your consciousness, keep popping up. You just remember, it's definitely not a see it and forget it type of film at all.
Yeah, no, I liked the movie too, and I just I had a couple of quibbles and quabbles, but they're just I really did like it. It didn't make my list or anything. I think in terms of just as an actual kind of story in a movie, because Byrd and Matt have kind of mentioned that the very end rubbed me slightly wrong, and maybe it was designed to do that, but I'll even say, just for me personally, before that, there's a kind of a coda to the is his name Leon? There's like a coda to his story that
Ron? It's just Ron.
Yeah, it felt a little too happy, and a little too neat. And that was one of my bigger issues with the movie. But it was really, really like, if you're looking, I don't know, it's kind of a weird thing to say if you're looking for this or looking for that. But yeah, I just think like if a kind of comedic, but also kind of heartfelt, gut punchy movie sounds like it might appeal to you, then yeah, I would recommend Black Klansman.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely one of the, whether people end up liking it or not, it's just definitely one of those must-see movies of 2018, I would say, for sure. So, Byrd, what do you got rolling at number 5?
Number 5, it might show up on someone else's list, but my number 5 is Avengers: Infinity War, which it wouldn't have. I wouldn't have thought it would wind up here, but I kind of have the, because like Trev's seen it a couple times now, and it's kind of like remained in the same spot for him. But it's one where I'm liking it more each time I watch it. Where the first time I saw it, I walked away saying, "Oh, that was pretty good," and but now I've seen it a couple times. I saw it twice in theaters, and now I've watched it a couple times on Blu-ray, and it's just something that for me. I pick up on different things every time I see it, and I really appreciate the way that it is kind of tying things together from these movies with the last 10 years and taking them to a logical conclusion. I think my favorite thing, Tom mentioned Thanos, and he's excellent. Brolin's excellent, but the thing that I think is my favorite now is just the relationship between Thanos and Tony Stark is just really interesting, and you really see how basically everything since the events of the first Avengers has been Tony Stark trying and in many ways failing to prepare for something like Thanos, and they just have this kind of like their destinies are like tied together, and I don't know. That's really cool. And then I like all the stuff with Spider-Man. Doctor Strange I thought was better in this movie than he was in his own movie. It's not perfect. I think the Thor side plot is a little bit not very interesting, but it's probably the best movie they could have made. To tie together these 10 years of Marvel movies, and it's one that I do get more enjoyment of every time I revisit it. So my number 5 is Avengers.
Yeah, I was going to say I actually have mine at number 3, so we'll just talk about it here. I just echo everything that Byrd said, and something Tom touched on earlier. Like, you feel the character's deaths, at least I did. And especially the relationship between Stark and Spider-Man. Like when he dies, like there was something just you felt the weight of it. And if you're just looking for, hey, punch, like there's a ton of action sequences that are out of this world that are very different. And the way that the Infinity Stones are actually used is very creative. You get a lot of different visuals because obviously the movie takes place in various areas and planets and different things. So that was kind of neat. And then, of course, you have, the character depth of Thanos, which, like, he's easily the best villain that we've seen out of the MCU, although I do like Killmonger quite a bit. But you feel the loss that he feels when there's a thing with him and Gamora. Like, there's all this really cool, I don't know, like, it felt the characters worked all together, and then the action sequences delivered. And the deaths that we all know are going to be, reversed at some point, or probably most of them, they didn't feel cheap to me. Like a lot of people, I saw a lot of people say they felt cheap, but like for me, I felt the weight of it. Like watching the people die on screen, it meant something to me. So I think it accomplished exactly what it set out to do. And when you have so many different characters, like they made a very coherent movie, and it was a really wonderful theater experience.
Yeah, I don't want to get into spoilers too much on it, but it's basically Star-Lord's fault, right? That the good guys lost.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of truth to that. Yeah,
it seemed like there was a split second where things were about to go the good guys' way, and Star-Lord's fucking anger and ego kind of screwed it up. It seemed like I found that interesting that the whole thing kind of fell apart based on one of the more trivial characters in the MCU. Mr. Jazz Pants, Chris Pratt. All right. So, Jelly, could you tell us your number 5, please?
Yeah, my number 5. No one has talked about this movie yet. I'm almost a little surprised. And I don't know if it's then on anyone else's list, but my number 5 is Annihilation. You might call this another Netflix movie.
It's kind
But yeah, I don't know. This movie just it hummed for me, and everything kind of clicked in it for me. I thought it was just like the. I don't know if maybe I was expecting something a little different maybe from it, but this movie genuinely surprised me at times. I really had no idea like where it was going next or what was going to happen next, and that's always a treat for me when I'm like sitting and watching a movie and I'm like, wait, what is even going to happen next? Now it's got a couple faults. It's a little cold and kind of distant, like the director's previous movie, which was Ex Machina. Some of the effects right at the end were not so good. There were a couple of those effects that weren't good that I thought I was still like, oh well, that's not a good effect, but at the same time, it's like it's kind of stylized and stylistic enough that it still worked for me, but there's a kind of a big one that kind of feeds into a major plot point that I was like, ooh, this is not working for me. But other than that, I mean, I really liked a lot of it, and I think it's an interesting metaphor for depression and self-loathing and self-destructive tendencies. So there's a lot of people like kind of talking about like the ending and what the ending means, and I think it kind of doesn't matter because that's not what the movie's about. And I don't know. I just I really it's hard to kind of talk about some of that without getting a little into spoilers. But yeah, I just think what people are getting hung up on isn't what the movie's really about, anyways. So like, it doesn't kind of matter that much. And then also there's a couple moments in this movie that genuinely scared me. And not the least of which is the I guess it's become somewhat infamous bear scene. That kind of scared the shit out of me, to be honest. So yeah, Annihilation, I really really liked it. And I would give it a 2 thumbs up. I think I gave it a 4.5 or a 4 out of 5. So
Annihilation is really good. It would have been, if we were doing 15, it would have been my 11. So it almost made it on there. But no, I agree with everything you said, and yeah, Alex Garland for me is someone to watch.
And definitely, I think, Annihilation, like, it's brought up with the plot and the sci-fi nature. But I think it was, honestly, one of the best casted films of the year, too. I thought the cast was rock solid. And
yeah, that is a really good, strong cast.
Oscar Isaac's southern accent might have left a little bit desired, but...
Hey, give him a break. He's Poe Dameron. Come on.
He's Apocalypse. Leave him alone.
Yeah,
come on.
Yeah. Come on, Trev. That guy had to endure being slathered in pounds of purple makeup from a child molester, and now you... The guy's from Guatemala. Give him a break. So what? He can't do
I like
Tennessee
Oscar
Williams
Isaac. I'm just saying,
All right. Trev, what do you got on your number 5 slot?
It's interesting that how much this, just our discussion is proving what a force Netflix is in the film world now, to where we keep talking about Netflix, and even, not that this is my film or anything, but right now it seems like the heavy favorite to win Best Picture at the Oscars this year is a Netflix film, and we kept bringing it up. So here we go again. I was just pretty down on Netflix with Cloverfield Paradox, but now I'll bring them back up and say my number 5 is one of those kind of Netflix originals, and that's the Indonesian action film The Night Comes for Us. So this is, what Matt mentioned earlier, the Raid films from Gareth Evans. Gareth Evans announced this year that he doesn't think he'll ever make the Raid 3. And on one level, that's a bummer, but it's kind of easier to take if his team is still cranking out Raid-esque films. And this anybody who loved The Raid, I'm sure will also dig this, which just feels like it kind of could be a spiritual third film in a Raid trilogy. Got some of the same cast members, kind of in different kind of roles, but this is just like The Raid. It's just kind of crazy intense martial arts. This one ups the ante by also adding in a lot of gore and just saying, hey, you know how you like how violent these crazy kung fu movies were already? What if they're also stabbing each other with bones and blowing off each other's limbs and slicing each other with machetes? And I just couldn't believe the level of violence of this. So watch it with a group of people, and it was like every 5 minutes we were all screaming out "Holy shit!" in unison. Just can't believe what you're seeing. And I'm a huge martial arts movie fan in general, and you get a lot of samey stuff in that genre. It's kind of like being a slasher fan, or I'd imagine being a kaiju fan. You get a lot of the same, and you're usually pretty pleased with all of it. It doesn't take much to impress you, but when you get something that adds something new or goes that extra mile, it really just kind of blows you away. And that's how I felt about this one. I just hope really more people discover this, especially since the director Timo Tahanto, I don't know, I'm sure I'm butchering that, but he said he sees this as the first part of a trilogy. So I'm really hoping he gets to kind of continue on and make the next ones. And Iko Uwais, who is the star of the Raid films, plays the villain here. I definitely want to see more from him because I feel like he has the potential to take up the mantle that Tony Jaa was kind of promised for a while and kind of dropped a little bit. So yeah, just all in all, if you're into just crazy violent action films, definitely check this one out.
If you want to see more from him, you could watch Beyond Skyline.
I did. No thanks.
Trev,
This was actually my number.
Nobody's perfect, you know.
Trev, what about Mile 22? Are you willing to give that one a spin?
Oh yeah, I will watch that. I just haven't got around to it.
Yeah, this was my number 2 film, and Trev hit the nail on the head. I mean, this from the time it starts until it finishes, I mean, it's just gore fest and crazy stuff happening, and you don't think something crazier can happen, and then it does, and honestly, it's a joy to watch on the screen. If you haven't seen it, check it out.
Yeah, just like Byrd with Annihilation, this would have been my 11. It was right there for me.
It's another Netflix one.
This was a movie. I'm pretty sure. I watched this while I was on like a little mini vacation, and my wife had gone to bed, and I was like, I'm not tired yet. Maybe I'll watch the first like 45 minutes or hour of this, and then kind of pause it and go to sleep myself. And I ended up staying up for the whole thing because I was just like, oh my god, holy shit, oh my god, like the whole time. Yeah, it's like it could, I mean, the night comes for us, and so do the bullets and the guns and grenades and chains and knives and machetes and bone saws and slabs of meat.
And wet floor signs.
And wet floor signs and shattered glass and broken bottles. Yeah, it's this movie makes you wonder if the John Wick movies are just for pussy ass bitches. Like, I mean,
this movie makes you wonder.
Don't tell out the source. Jeez.
This movie makes you wonder: is there any fake blood left in Indonesia after this?
Yeah, probably not. Also, Uncle Bobby is awesome. You can't mention
Uncle Bobby's great.
Yeah, he's wonderful.
So Netflix is responsible for a lot of the best movies we've seen this year, but also like the 2 worst.
This is one though too. Like I will say quickly, The Night Comes for Us is one where it's kind of a bummer that we didn't get to see this in theaters. Because I think this would be a really fun movie to watch in a packed theater with an audience. Because I've seen the Raid films like that, and a packed audience can be a lot of fun for these kind of movies where it just kind of keeps blowing you away with what's happening next if the whole audience gets into it. So hopefully this will get some kind of like screenings and revival showings in later years.
Yeah. Like, I think that's one good thing about these things is I think we're starting to see there's actually a lot of stuff playing in theaters right now that's actually on home video right now. And not only that, but is actually making money in theaters. So I hope you're right about that, Trev, about some of these things having.
Yeah, I think in certain markets, there's been a big like kind of push lately for like revival screenings because I think we're just kind of into that communal. As we get more, not to get into like a weird rant here, but as we get more detached as a society, I think there's more call for communal experiences. So that's why you see stuff like the Joe Bob thing happen with everyone wanting to live tweet while watching it together, and then more revival screenings. So yeah.
All right, moving along. Everybody got their number.
I think Matt has to do his number 5 still.
Does
he just keeps jumping ahead?
Yeah, I was getting confused. Does anybody else still need to do their number 5, or did everybody do number 5?
I did mine.
Okay.
Yeah, I did mine. We're good.
Okay, cool.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, that's wrong.
All right, so number 4 on my list is one of the 17 different Marvel comic book movies that come out this year. Number 4, I'm going with Ant-Man and the Wasp. I'm sure this isn't on anybody else's list, but I really enjoyed this. This is the type of comic book movie I personally enjoy. Just a lot of fun. Ant-Man, the first film, was one of my favorite Marvel movies. I enjoyed it. I love Paul Rudd in the role. I love how they really kind of organically worked now Evangeline Lilly the Wasp in with Ant-Man being a duo again. I love the kind of multi-generational thing that's going on with Michael Douglas and Michelle Pfeiffer playing the parents, and just the gimmicks of the constantly shrinking down, popping back up, cars being able to pop back up. I just find this series a lot of fun, and I hope they get to, because I know they got to wrap up a lot of kind of big Marvel issues right now with the Thanos thing and all that. I hope they do, 3-4 years, whenever from now, they circle back and kind of finish off an Ant-Man trilogy and get to do one more, because I really love this cast that was together in this Ant-Man and the Wasp, and I like to see them all in one big more adventure together. So yeah, Ant-Man and the Wasp. Matt, what do you got rocking at number 4?
I would be shocked if this movie is on anybody else's list. It's The Endless. So technically this came out in 2017, but didn't get a wide release until 2018 in April. And it basically features 2 brothers who are played actually by the directors Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead. And the idea is they visit a cult that they previously had escaped from, because the one brother is basically struggling to adjust to everyday life and he wants to go back. And so the other brother is like, okay, well, let's go check this out. I want to show you that we have it better now than we've ever had it. And it just follows their life as they go back. They're reintroduced to the cult and the different things that happen along with these other characters. And then all this weird stuff just goes batshit crazy, and all the supernatural elements that come into play. And it hits kind of the sweet spot for me, because science fiction sci-fi is my personal favorite genre of film. But it also takes the religious elements of that and kind of combines all those things. And everything works really well together for me. You get some also very unique visuals. And I think we talked about this maybe in our thread, but I'm not sure if Jelli liked the ending. But I like the ending pretty well. And so that's why it made it all the way to number 4.
This like, if we did a top 20, maybe this probably would have made it on there. I really liked the emotional depth of the movie, and yeah, I liked the atmosphere that they held throughout. I think the end was like, for me, it was kind of a little too easy. It left a little to be desired. It kind of just like pushed itself out of the corner that it wrote itself into, rather than kind of getting there a little more naturally. But this is these guys have done a few other films, and I like those other ones, but this one I think is their most kind of complete movie out of all their movies so far.
Yeah, I agree with that. I like this one too. It didn't make my list or anything, but this was the first time where I felt like I kind of got Benson and Moorhead, because I thought Resolution was okay. I was really cool on Spring. I really did not dig that one that much. And then this one I thought was such a step above those other two. And I think part of that is, I kind of agree with you, Jelli, that the ending is a little simplistic, but I think the ending really falters in the other two. So I was kind of happy to just have an ending. And I don't know. I will say, if anyone is thinking of checking this out, I think you do have to watch Resolution first. I think these really work as a 1-2 punch, because this is kind of a secret sequel to that in a way. It can be enjoyed as its own thing, but if you watch them both in one night, you might get the most enjoyment out of it. But yeah, this is a really cool one that, again, I hope more people kind of do find, and it makes me, now I'm excited to see what they do next, because this showed a lot of growth for them.
I missed this one, but Matt, have you seen Resolution?
No, that was actually, I didn't know they were connected. I was just like, oh, this movie looks interesting, and I clicked play, and yeah, and then I found that after the fact that there is some very specific ties between the two films, and so it's on my list to eventually get to.
Trev says go do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think too that the thing I like the most about this film is the brothers, the relationship that they have with each other, and the different dynamics at work. Like, it's really strong stuff, and if you have siblings, like, it's just so very easily relatable, and I think that's probably why it works so well for me.
Yeah, I totally forgot about this, but I actually heard about this movie on the Shockwaves podcast months ago. And as soon as you started talking about it, Matt, it totally rang the bell. Yeah, I kind of want to see this from what they were saying and now what you're saying. It sounds like it's be pretty good.
Yeah, it's great. It's also a pretty quick watch. So, I mean, if you got like 90 minutes to kill, go for it.
And who doesn't have 90 minutes to kill nowadays? Let me tell you. Byrd.
Hey, you can go watch it while Byrd talks about his number one movie.
Exactly. Byrd, number 4, please.
I think this is probably going to pop up again, but sorry to bother you. Boots Riley's directorial debut. I mean, everything about this was what I wanted in a movie full of awful franchise sequels and reboots. I saw this like smack dab between some bullshit like between like Jurassic World 2 and something else, and it was just like it was exactly what I needed at that time. Just in addition to just a really unique directorial style and art direction, it's just a really smartly written movie, really funny. Lakeith Stanfield and Stephen Yin and Tessa Thompson, a great bit part by Terry Crews. Everyone's awesome. It has multiple things to say about society and race relations and a whole myriad of other things as well. There's layers to it, and yeah, the third act is absolutely insane. And anyone that says that they guessed it is lying to you, quite frankly. But I loved everything about it. Like at this point, we're into like my 1 through 4 movies where like I really they just hit the spot for me in every way. And yeah, I just adore this movie.
Yeah, it's been a racially charged year for films.
This is also the third movie on my list by a black director. So,
wow. Interesting.
So you're just racist, is what? Just kill Whitey.
He's race baiting us. Jelly, what did you have for number 4?
My number 4, I'm not sure if this is on anyone else's list or if it was maybe like something where it just fell off, I think. But it's A Quiet Place. Seeing a movie like this in a crowded theater. I mean, I saw this in a theater where like it was one of those like buy your tickets or select your seat things, and like I got one of the last seats that was not in the front row. It's a tricky play, especially with some of the theatrical experiences that I've had in the past. At Krampus, I got threatened to have my ass kicked. At Halloween, there were people like shouting things at the screen, which that was okay for that movie. But you know, I had a dude take a phone call in the middle of The Witch when I saw that. So I've had some dicey theatrical plays, and when you see a movie like a Quiet Place, you want to see it with like perfect pristine sound in a dark theater, in dead silence. And I did get to see it that way. It was a full theater, and everyone had their shit together and was quiet. And that was the perfect way to experience this movie. I have some issues with it, some things I would change. There's a moment kind of towards the climax that just slightly rubbed me the wrong way a little bit. But yeah, overall, while this isn't like a really terrifying horror movie, like I think if you're one of those people who kind of likes horror, you could still kind of, this one's still palatable. But it is tense. It's intense. It's a hell of a ride. It's a lot of fun. And it's a lot of fun, even with a small child being murdered in the first 5 minutes. But yeah, it's just one of those movies that it takes a premise that's fairly interesting, and that you could easily go into a movie like this and be like, oh, well, it had a good premise. But this is one where it actually makes complete and full use of that premise to like every extent that it needs to be used. And I know they're planning on making sequels possibly because this was such like a huge kind of surprise hit. I'd be fine with no sequels personally.
Well, we're getting a second one. I think that's like official.
I know. I'm just saying this is a movie that, you've got this premise and this does everything that you need to do with that premise. And I really appreciate when a movie that has kind of a kooky, wacky premise does that, when it's like, okay, we're going to have this kind of almost gimmicky premise, but at least we're going to do everything we possibly can with it. And so, yeah, A Quiet Place, my number 4 movie of the year. Plus, yeah, it's only like 90 minutes, which you don't get very much in movies these days.
Right. So sometimes, especially for theatrical viewing, whatever your movie is, I always feel like length really matters. Having the perfect length for your subject matter really matters for theatrical hits. So yeah, rolling right along. Trev, what do you got at number 4?
This is one I wasn't sure if it was going to pop up on here, and I'm guessing at this point, we're this far, it's probably not going to, except for right now. But if you know me, this one won't surprise you at all. In fact, I think when Jelly watched this, he even said, I think he said, I can understand why this would be a 5-star movie for Trev. This is Revenge, the rape revenge film from director Coralie Farge. One of my favorite things is kind of old school exploitation flicks, but then there's that also kind of interesting thing as an exploitation fan nowadays, where I like those films because of how transgressive they are, but I myself have kind of evolved as a person, as society's evolved. You're like, well, is there like a nice middle ground between exploitation film and kind of more, socially aware kind of takes on it? And I think this is a good version of that, where we have this kind of more feminist-driven rape revenge movie. And then beyond that, everything else about it just speaks to me. It's got the kind of cool like score that I love. The music's great. Just the visual style is really, fantastic. Super bloody again. I didn't mean to have 2 just gore fests in a row on my list, but hey, that's the way it goes sometimes. But yeah, just an awesome like female empowerment story. There's not a lot to say to it because it's so simplistic, right? The story is very simple. Girl goes out to the desert with her boyfriend. Doesn't realize a couple of his friends are going to be there. Bad things happen. I call it a rape revenge film, so you figure it out. She ends up getting thrown off a cliff and left for dead, and then it's obviously the story of her coming back for her revenge. And I think what's kind of cool about this one is, and I guess this is the divisive part because I've seen some people complain about this, and I think even Jelly and I had some discussions about this. You kind of have to just go with this if you're going to enjoy the film. It walks right up to the level of being supernatural without quite ever fully making that jump, but what she survives and what some of the other characters kind of live through is pretty questionable if you want to use logic. But if you don't mind logic and you look at it as kind of more of a mythic story about this character rising as like a phoenix, and there's even a pretty dead-on, in your face analogy of that with her burning a phoenix symbol into her stomach. If you can accept the non-logical aspect of it and just get into it as like a really fun action film, I think you'll dig it. And I definitely did. So, yep, Revenge.
Yeah, I need to revisit this one. Just, because I liked it, right? Mm-hmm. And what what I didn't like on my first watch was the opening. I don't know, maybe 20 minutes or something. When the movie really grabbed me, and I was like, okay, I get it now. Is that kind of nail on the head Phoenix moment?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like this is the kind of movie like. So when I watch like Craig Zoller's movies, like Bone Tomahawk or Brawl in Cell Block 99, I feel like I'm watching like an exploitation movie that's like more.
Yeah.
It kind of takes an exploitation starting point and it elevates it to another level that like almost like legitimizes exploitation.
Yeah, like classy exploitation.
Right. And then like when you watch like the Grindhouse movies, I feel like I'm watching something kind of less, like it's certainly like less earnest. Like it's all like wink wink, like nudge nudge. Oh, isn't this like a crazy exploitation thing? And it's got like this gimmicky feel to it, especially with like the Machete movies. Those especially have that like it doesn't feel earnest at all. Revenge to me, I felt like I was just watching like an exploitation movie. Like it's not necessarily elevated. It just is what it is, and it really embraces that. And it was when it embraced that it all kind of the tumblers all kind of clicked into place, and I got it. And so I do want to revisit it and just see if it kind of maybe goes up a notch or two for me, because this was on my like 15 spot. Mm-hmm. So
I really like it too. It would have been my 14 spot, but yeah, I like that. It is a rape revenge movie that in a way turns it on its head a little bit and kind of I guess inverts a lot of the tropes, and yeah, I dig it. It just didn't make it this far for me.
I mean, I will say, is in terms of genre films starring Matilda Lutz that start with an R, it's better than Rings.
Alrighty, yeah, I need to see it. I get it hyped up every time. They always seem to have a commercial for it on Shockwave's podcast. So yeah.
Yeah, well, it was one of the first. It was one of the first really big like Shudder pickups. I know.
Right.
So.
Yeah. So yeah, moving along. Number 3, I have a film again. Very disappointed this film didn't get a better release. I wanted to check this film out. It's called Don't Let the Title Throw You. It's called Hot Summer Nights. I was interested in this because it has 2 of my favorite young actors, Timothy Chalamet and Micah Monroe in it. And it's a movie takes place summer of 1991, Cape Cod, Massachusetts. Timothy Chalamet kind of plays a kind of somewhat nerdy kid who goes to spend the summer on Cape Cod with, I believe, his aunt. And he befriends a local drug dealer. They become buddies. He starts, helping him sell drugs. And next thing you know, like, he's kind of using his book smarts and his ambition to, help push the drug dealing business they got. Pretty much just like marijuana, small time. And Thomas Jane plays the local sheriff. I don't know. I don't want to give too much away because some of the characters are kind of interconnected in this. But yeah, it's really fun. It's really got a great nostalgic throwback feel. Like you expect all drug dealing movies to happen. Shit goes wrong in the third act, of course. But I really was drawn up in it. I liked the relationship between all the characters and whatnot. I liked the nostalgic feel. I would definitely recommend it. It was like some kind of weird shit. It's A24, which is kind of like the premier independent distributor now, but they I don't know, they did some kind of weird deal with initially DirecTV, but now I saw it on Amazon streaming, so you can watch it on Amazon Prime. I don't know how long it will be on there, but it's on there now. So yeah, definitely recommend everybody check out Hot Summer Nights if you kind of like those fun throwback, kind of I don't know what you would call it. It's kind of coming of age tale, but it's also coming of age with like, high stakes going on. Really stylized, really great. I recommend it. Matt, what do you got at number 3?
So it's one we already talked about, which is Avengers: Infinity War, and I don't really have much to add except it's awesome and I loved it.
So, are you Team Cap or Team Stark?
Come on, man. That was a couple years ago.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's tough. I'm still on the fence all these years later.
All right, hot takes. Did anybody else find Tony Stark's new armor to be just annoyingly stupid? Like he basically has like witchcraft technology. Like it doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
I actually like. I mean, it's that's from the comics, and I actually always kind of like the nanotechnology thing. In the comics, it was actually taken even further to where it was inside his body, and when he would have to.
Yeah, it was like
the pores.
Yeah, it was like a Guyver kind of thing, right?
Yeah. So they didn't even go as far as they could have with it. I think the look of it, the design was maybe one of the uglier Iron Man suits. I think that was maybe part of the problem. But I don't have a problem with the tech, like the way it comes out or anything.
Yeah. I mean, it gets his ass beat, so like it kind of didn't matter.
You're right. Yeah, before Infinity War came out, kind of my fear was that there's like, dang, there's so many characters involved. It's going to be so messy, jumping from here to there, these characters. But the way they kind of, centrally located a lot of the characters in groups, like, I was actually surprised, especially on the second watch. It's actually got a fairly tight narrative. It's not really as all over the place as I really, thought it was going to be.
Yeah, that's what I want to say. But I mean, it didn't make my list. But we're joking about how I don't care about Marvel anymore. But to be fair, I do like this movie. I just wasn't blown away by it. But I have always said I think its biggest accomplishment is that it's not a giant mess. And I think that's actually,
right.
I mean, that's a compliment. That's a testament to the Russos and the writers, because it should have been by all accounts. And they actually figured it out and pulled it off. So good on them.
I agree completely. Byrd, what you got at number 3?
I have a feeling this is going to turn up quite a bit from here on out, and so I'm not going to go too crazy. But I guess I'll be the first one to bring up at number 3. I'll be the first one to bring up Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, a movie that I started off with marginal interest in just because I love Spider-Man, and then to me, this is the big surprise of the year. What easily could have been another attempt by Sony for another way to cash in on Spider-Man while Marvel's doing their thing, it turned out to be probably maybe the best Spider-Man movie that I've seen. Following Miles Morales, a character from the comics that I've never read a comic book with that character. So we have a black Spider-Man, and then we also have Peter Parker, and we have a pig Spider-Man, and we have a black and white noir Spider-Man, and an anime Spider-Man. And it's just a lot of fun. It's the opposite of the Godzilla anime in that this really does take full advantage of it being an animated film. Animation style is really cool and meant to simulate kind of comic book panels and the way people move. It's meant to be kind of like flipping through the pages of a comic book. So from a visual perspective, it's great. It really nailed what I think the older version of Peter Parker should be. It's just full of heart, and it's everything that I really want in a Spider-Man movie. And I'm not sure that I can say that about any previously existing Spider-Man film. I loved it, and I just talking about it gets me excited to watch it again, and I already saw it twice. So Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
A grown-up version of Spider-Man. I never thought we would get that on the big screen, I gotta say. So yeah, rolling along with Jelly, number 3. What's in that slot for you?
It's Hereditary. So I think when this came up earlier, I mentioned it was higher on my list, and so here's where it is. One of the things I loved about this movie so much was that kind of like a movie like the Babadook. That I also really loved from a few years ago It Follows. This movie knows how to like ratchet up tension without just being startling and jump scares. It's like, you know, it constantly, like, it'll ratchet things up like 2 or 3 notches and then release it back just one. So you kind of, you get to relax a little bit, but you're constantly just at like a higher, you know, sense of awareness and like terror than you were 5 minutes ago or 10 minutes ago, or, you know, however long. It's just, it's constantly building the tension throughout the entire movie. And, you know, when you do get some of those like really scary moments towards the end, they're really unnerving and really, really terrifying. You know, there's a lot of layers to the movie. There's a lot of smart writing. There are a lot of clues kind of sprinkled in and planted throughout. This is definitely a movie that I want to revisit. You know, it's the kind of movie that I think benefits from multiple rewatches. I don't think that's always the case with movies. You know, a lot of times you can watch a movie, it could be amazing, but then, you know, you watch it again and you're like, oh yeah, it was still good, but, you know, knowing where everything goes, just not as great anymore. But like this definitely has like so much kind of smart stuff just sprinkled throughout that I'm like, God, I want to watch it again and see if I pick up on things that I wasn't picking up on the first time. And then you know, so much of this movie's lore or backstory or whatever is kind of based in actual fact. So, well, not fact so much as like actual, like already existing kind of like stories and lore and things like that. Like, there's all this stuff going on about this cult, right? And they worship this demon, and all of that stuff that's in the movie, to my knowledge, is actually based on and pretty closely based on like an existing sect of like people who worship this I can't even remember the demon's name, but and that demon's kind of history and everything, it actually exists, right? They didn't just invent all this for the movie. So that's really interesting to me too, is like how, you know, how well does that all fit together. So this is a movie that just kind of inspired me to like read about the movie afterwards, you know, kind of like Suspiria did for Trev, and yeah, it also like has just a couple of moments of just hard hitting gore in it. One that's particularly unnerving, and then also it's a movie that works outside of being a horror movie. It's a movie that works as a story about coping with loss and grief. And you know, all the best movies of any genre, unless it's like a more like just kind of straightforward like drama or something, work as a story about something else. You know, I mean, you take like the alien element out of The Thing, and it's still a really great movie about like paranoia and cabin fever. And this is you take the horror elements and the demonic possession and all of that out of this movie, and it's still a really good movie about grief and coping with grief and coping with loss and what that can do to a family. And it's just I loved this movie. It was awesome.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it too, and it's one of those ones I'm really looking forward to revisiting. You know, someday, not too far away, hopefully, because like you said, I think it's one of those things where there's a lot of not even necessarily hints, but there's just a lot of stuff kind of hiding in plain sight that you don't really get the first time you watch it, and then when you kind of know where everything connects up at the end of the film, I feel like it's probably fun to sit there and watch that all kind of unfold in front of your eyes throughout the movie, you know, when you watch it on repeat viewings. So yeah. So moving on, Trev, what do you got number 3?
It's a really strong testament to my 1 and 2 that they beat this one out, because by all logic, this should have been my favorite movie of the year, and that's Mandy. The fact that Mandy didn't make the top spot really tells you something about the next two. But this is a movie that just felt made for me. Just that kind of overly stylized look. Again, the music, Nicolas Caging it up. The ability to take what could just be a simple revenge story and say, hey, let's also throw in like Cenobite bikers and bizarre drug trips and animated sequences. This is just pure creativity unleashed on film, and that's what I'm looking for most of the time when I go into films now, because it is, I think all of us are getting kind of bored with samey kind of stuff that we're getting fed to us a lot. And then you see something like Mandy, which is just such a strong artistic statement and just so unique and so weird and cool. It doesn't surprise me that it did kind of break out and was a legit hit in the indie sphere. And I'm glad that happened. It was cool to see Nicolas Cage have a big resurgence here in general, and to see him get used right, and just to remind you that even that kind of over the top performance, when filtered in the right direction, put in the right kind of movie, it doesn't have to be a joke. It can be like, oh no, he's actually really good if you're putting it in the right context. And Mandy was definitely the right context. So yeah, I love this movie. I think my Letterboxd review for this movie, I just wrote something like, I love this movie, because I couldn't think of anything else to say. And even now I'm struggling just because it's so perfect to me. So I'm glad other people are digging it, and I'm glad it seems like it's going to have a long life as like kind of maybe the high point of the later part of Cage's career, unless he even tops this now, which here's hoping.
We've gotten this far into talking about this movie where it's been mentioned a few times, and no one has said Cheddar Goblin.
Yeah.
Ooh, I don't know how.
That's a fail. That's a fail.
We suck.
We do. I don't want to give everything away. There's a lot of people still ain't seen it. But yeah, what I think the main point I have to say about Mandy is, for me, it's the perfect mashup of two films that I like. The previous movie from the director, Beyond the Black Rainbow, and then also another Nicolas Cage movie, Drive Angry. This movie really reminds me of like a mashup of those two films, stylistically and then kind of Cage-wise and whatnot. So yeah, I definitely dug on this. In a weird way, it was one of those things where I think the only reason this isn't on my list is I was constantly comparing it to, because it made me feel so much like Beyond the Black Rainbow. And even while I was watching Mandy, I was like, damn, I gotta watch Beyond the Black Rainbow again. Like, all I could think about was Beyond the Black Rainbow, because it's been a few years since, it's probably about 4 years since I've seen it. And it's just always a film that stuck with me. So yeah, I got to get back to that. But no, Mandy in itself, I definitely think it's a masterpiece. And there's always that evolution of midnight movies. All for different reasons, of course. These midnight phenomena are all different. And for the last decade, whatever, it's kind of transitioned from stuff like Rocky Horror to The Room and all these weird things. I really think Mandy should be the next midnight movie for like the next 10 years. I think it's just perfectly built for that.
Yeah, I think it could be, because I think it's, to even go back to some older midnight movies, I think it sits nice alongside stuff like Lynch and Jodorowsky in terms of that kind of creative feel. So
I agree, definitely big thumbs up for Mandy. Moving along to the number twos. Number two, this is just a movie, another one I really want to see again. I don't know, I didn't really hear much about this movie at all. If anything, it seemed like it kind of got dismissed when it came out, but I really enjoyed this movie. It came out real early in the year. I can't remember, either January or February, but it's called Den of Thieves with Gerard Butler. The best way I can describe it without giving too much away is it's very similar to Heat. Starts out with a hotshot crew of bank robbers, and basically you follow them and their crew, and basically there's like a crew of badass cops led by Gerard Butler, that are after them. So it's kind of cool because you kind of throughout the movie you see them do the robberies and you see the cops always trying to catch them. And, and then it also goes into the personal life of both sides, the criminals and the cops and whatnot. I mean, I wouldn't, by no means, I wouldn't put it in the same category or class of Heat, but it's just that type of, I think Heat's like a 3-hour movie. This one was really just, a little over 2 hours, but still, it had that feeling and the way it wraps up and stuff. And it wasn't like a huge hit. I think the budget was about $30 million. But the worldwide box office was maybe $80 million, and supposedly they're working on a sequel, which, if that ends up happening, it'll kind of blow me away, because you don't see movies that are, little tiny modest hits get sequels like that. So whether it gets a sequel or not, I really like Den of Thieves. I think Gerard Butler takes a lot of shit, sometimes rightfully so, for the types of roles he picks, but I think for these types of films, playing gritty, hard-edged characters, I think he comes through. So, yeah, I would definitely recommend that. I'm looking back at my list now, and I remember half these are pretty much like crime films, so I guess I just pretty much like crime films is the real the real gist of my list. But, Matt, what do you have at number 2?
Again, another movie we've already talked about, The Night Comes for Us. But anytime I can mention how awesome Uncle Bobby is, have I mentioned that? Uncle Bobby is awesome. That's just watch the movie. Yeah, man, Uncle Bobby for life.
Where is this movie available at right now? Is it
Netflix?
Okay,
Netflix. Gotcha. Yeah, we are shilling Netflix hard.
Yeah, I know,
tonight.
Man. You guys kind of creeped up on me. I wish I would have got a warning that this was going to be a 2-hour paid advertisement for the soon-to-be
just send them your podcast and
yeah.
request a paycheck, man. That's how we roll.
That's how they roll.
Yeah, we're hoping maybe if we talk about them this much, they won't give us the price raise. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the way the price raise works is like new people get it right away, and I think existing customers get it 3-month break before the price, right? But maybe if we shill enough, maybe we can get like a 6-month reprieve for the price.
A 3-year break or something.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have to edit out all the bad stuff we said about Godzilla and Cloverfield.
Yeah. Cloverfield Paradox is awesome.
Yeah, so this podcast will no longer contain that middle part that was about the worst movies of the year. Byrd, what did you have for number 2?
My number 2 is Hereditary, and I don't have much to add to what Tom said. I mean, take the horror out, and it's an outstanding family drama. Everyone is great, especially Toni Collette, who, I mean, there is no bad Toni Collette. She's just always delivers. And yeah, I mean, this is my kind of horror movie. I mean, I can enjoy a slasher or something schlockier, but I mean, I really fall for the stuff that is not only just gonna give you a lot of tension. I mean, I was on the edge of my seat this whole time, and a lot of those are just scenes of people talking. That's how good the writing and the acting is. But also like give me a storyline, that revolves around real people with real problems. I mean, annoying teenagers can only go so far, and movies like this are like this is the kind of horror movie that I like. That it's unnerving, but it's also made with a degree of maturity and intellect. And I can't say enough about it. It just floored me. I mean, yeah, I just can't echo enough the stuff that was already said about this movie. I will say, I mean, if this is your first time like hearing anyone really talk about it, don't watch the trailers. The trailers are terrible. They make it look like you're, just another kind of jump scare fest, and that's not what this is at all. So yeah, Hereditary just knocked me out, and it's an unpleasant movie, but that's what I love about it. So
yeah, the trailers were terrible for this. I remember that because this was a movie I was like pretty excited to see, and then I saw trailers and I was like, oh my god.
You know what? I'll play devil's advocate on that really quickly, though, and say I think the trailers were effective, though, in that they didn't give away what the movie really was. And whereas people like us were like, they tricked a lot of people into seeing the movie thinking it was going to be one of those kind of dumb, I think it was a bigger hit than it would have been otherwise because people thought it was like kind of a standard horror film because of those trailers.
Maybe. I mean, I ended up not being able to see it in theaters, but that was for different reasons. I was traveling when the movie came out, so but yeah, it was definitely something where I didn't put myself out to try and get to see it because of those trailers, which were, but yeah, it's not those trailers.
Thankfully, yeah. I'm in the same, but I pretty much avoided it because of the trailers. I thought it was going to be a PG-13 jump scare fest. And I pretty much, once all the positive word came back, I was pretty much dying to see it once it hit video. I kind of missed it theatrically. And I think if I remember right, I think I saw it like the week it came out on video. And I was like, holy shit. Like, if you were to make a, whatever top 3 just must see like movies, like not just your favorite but just movies that you just recommend to people, Hereditary would be on that short list of me, where it's just like anybody who likes horror, I think they would definitely like Hereditary. So let's see, I'm getting lost in my places yet. Who's next on the list? Is it Jelly?
Sure.
Do your number 2?
My number 2, and I'm just gonna give this the caveat of the difference between my number 1 and my number 2 right now is I've seen my number 1 movie a couple of times and I enjoyed it like that much both times, and my number 2 movie I've only seen the once, and I just want to see it one more time to see if it kind of still holds that same punch for me. My number 2 movie is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Like Byrd said, it makes full use of its stylistic choice of animation. Anyone who's for the last like 20 years or however long it's been lamenting that Batman Mask of the Phantasm, didn't get its due because it was an animated movie. This movie exists now, like this movie did not bomb, is beating Disney in awards categories. It's awesome to have something this good in this medium come out and people recognize it, and no one's really saying about this movie, oh, I wish they could do a live action version of this. Everyone's just watching this movie and enjoying it just for what it is. And a big part of that is because they do things in such a creative way with the animation that you wouldn't even want to see this movie in live action. It's perfect. The way it is in its animated form. I had a couple of little ticks. The one thing I want to see if it bothers me as much at home was the out of focus stuff that kind of made me feel like I was wearing or not wearing 3D glasses at a 3D showing. It bugged me a couple of times a little bit, but that'd be my only real complaint. By the way, best post-credit scene in a movie this year?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, easily.
Yeah. So yeah, this movie just it's so fun, and yeah, it's also got that heart to it, right? And it all just sings and it all works, and yeah, it's probably the best Spider-Man movie to date. Just like Batman Mask of the Phantasm is one of the better Batman movies to date. And like the animated series is the definitive take on Batman for me. This is kind of a fairly definitive take on Spider-Man. Certainly I would imagine probably like it's going to be the definitive take on Miles Morales. And yeah, it's awesome. I loved it.
Yeah, I gotta see it. I have plans actually to see it next week. My local theater actually has seizure warnings posted all over on the doors for this film. Did anybody else see that at any local theaters?
I haven't seen it, but it doesn't surprise me.
I'm seeing that for a lot of movies now. I saw Glass recently, and Glass had that as well.
Yeah, for some reason, Escape Room had that too on the doors.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So, Trev, what do you got in the number 2 spot?
All right, so I guess I know I'm the only person that has this on my list because the rest of you are weird, grumpy weirdos or something. But number 2.
Wait, by the way, what a way to start out praising the film.
I'm going to be really positive about this. No, look, in a year where I think everyone has kind of acknowledged a pretty rough year for blockbusters, a lot of garbage out there.
Oh yeah.
And I did a pretty good job avoiding a lot of that this year, but thankfully, in terms of the one I was most excited for, it delivered, and that was Mission Impossible Fallout. I've long said I think this is by far the best franchise running right now, and kind of an unsung one until this year. I feel like this year it finally started to get like the attention and acclaim it deserved. I think with this entry, I'll go so far as to say I think this one, Fallout, is arguably the best American action film since Mad Max Fury Road. And so a large part of that is I'm by no means actually a CGI hater. I don't have a lot of problems with CGI that other people do, but I will join in the chorus and say, yes, it's true that all these CGI action scenes and everything is getting to be a little dime a dozen, and they're not really exciting anymore. They serve a purpose, and it's fine. I liked, the visuals of Aquaman and stuff like that. But damn, is there something refreshing to watch a movie like Fallout nowadays where you have this crazy, insane person as the star who's doing these insane stunts and just putting his life on the line and filming it for us. And you're watching in pure IMAX format this guy hang from helicopters, fly a helicopter upside down, get thrown off a motorcycle. You could say it's just stunt driven, but also what's great about this film is that it's got these crazy action scenes, but it's also probably the best story of the franchise. The first one that has a really strong emotional hook for his character. They came up with a really compelling storyline for him this time. It's a cool culmination of a lot of story themes from the previous ones, whereas they've all been standalones. This is one that actually felt like it was really rewarding fans of the franchise, where a lot of things come back and kind of wrap up. And, Henry Cavill is just like a beast in this in a way I didn't expect, because I was always really cool on him in Superman. And I haven't seen Man from U.N.C.L.E., which I've heard is really good in, but this is one where I stood up and said, okay, yeah, this guy has like star quality for sure. Ilsa Faust, played by Rebecca Ferguson, continues to be a great character that I could even see get a spinoff if they were smart. But yeah, just all in all, this is the odd action franchise that just keeps getting better as it goes along. And I was really happy this year to finally see like the press around it kind of acknowledge that and step up in a big way. I noticed people really raving about this one, and that kind of follows through to the recent announcement that they hired Christopher McQuarrie now to write and direct 2 more entries that are actually going to film back to back and release a year apart. So it seems like they really know what they've got with this series now, and I'm all for Tom Cruise trying to kill himself on film for my enjoyment, and he's even said he wants to try and figure out how to go into space in one of these ones. So let's do it, Tom. Do whatever you got to do. Strap your ass to a rocket and shoot off into space and film it, and I'll be there for it opening weekend.
Hashtag goals. Yeah, I definitely, and I'll be honest, I kind of didn't understand like where the groundswell came from, because I mean all the Mission Impossibles have all been hit, not only hits, but they've been popular. But this one in particular, Trev, I noticed maybe like about a month before it came out, it seemed like this movie was all anybody was talking about in the movie sphere.
Yeah, and it got like it had like a 98% on Rotten Tomatoes or stuff too. And but I do think this one deserves it too. I think like the escalation of action sequences in this one is pretty amazing. I think I will say, as much as I've enjoyed the previous ones, I think a problem the 2 before this had was that the best action scene was usually in the middle of the film, and the climax didn't quite live up to it. And this one is really smart in how it keeps building and building. And then the final 15 minutes of this one are just so exciting. And it's just like such a ludicrous in the best way action spectacle that ends it. So I think they finally figured out the pacing element maybe, and maybe that's a part of what made this one click too.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's just, I guess the world of movies are changing. I guess movies are becoming more of a serialized thing, but I find it very interesting, especially with the action franchise. It seems like Fast and Furious with I think their part 5 and now Mission Impossible with their part 6, it's like it's really interesting to see these long running series kind of get a boost and a second wind, and just generate so much more excitement and people looking forward to the and they're basically, like you said, they're going to the Fast and Furious schedule, getting one out pretty much every whatever, not every year, but every other year, I guess would be the way to say it. But yeah, so we're coming down the whole home stretch. We're getting into the favorite movies of the year. I gotta say, I just want to mention, I don't know if this is an honorable mention or what, but the film that I absolutely dead to rights knew would be my number one film was the Christian Bale film Hostiles. I checked, and because I remember I saw it, I think the wide release was early January, but technically the limited release was December 22, I think, of 2017. So I just want to recommend Hostiles to anybody out there. Great cast. Ben Foster's awesome in it as well. Wes Studi's awesome in it. Insanely brutal Western. Also uses the Western format to really comment a lot on race relations, which this year where it was huge in movies. So I felt like I was going to be a cheat if I put Hostiles as my number one. So it would be if it qualified, but I'm going to play by the rules here. So my actual number one for the year, and I think this is one everybody saw coming, I'm just going to go with my favorite popcorn munching movie going experience of the year, and I'm going to go with Star Wars Solo. I don't know what you want to call it, the origin film, the whatever of Han Solo. Honestly, ironically enough, I've always been a Star Wars guy. I've never been that huge of a Han Solo guy. I think my interest in him kind of peaked in A New Hope and then kind of slowly dissipated over the other films. So, and this was a movie I was honestly dreading for the 2 years build up before it came out. I was like, I'm not a fan of recasting whatevers. Sometimes it works when you have a younger version, like Ewan McGregor did work out as young Obi-Wan Kenobi. When they casted him, I do like Alden Ehrenreich, but from other films I've seen him in, but I didn't think he would be a good fit for this. And once I saw the movie, I guess it's kind of like when you see a different actor take on James Bond or whatever. I didn't really care how much or how little or whatever he reminded me of Harrison Ford. I just was all in on the buddy dynamics of him and Chewbacca. I thought it was a great adventurous ride. It's definitely what I want to see out of Star Wars films, or at least spin-off films. I like the more personal, smaller scale adventures where they don't have to save the entire galaxy all at once. So yeah, I don't know. Just a movie I really never predicted I would like as much as I did, and then when I saw it, I just had a blast with it. So I'm going with Solo. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, I was not a fan of Solo. I didn't like it much at all. But I do want to say that Alden Ehrenreich, I actually thought he was pretty good. I actually thought he was better than Donald Glover is Lando, which seemed to be getting more press, right. But he's just kind of doing a lazy Billy D. Williams. But Ehrenreich, I thought he was charming. I thought he was likable. He was a good Solo, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I'll just kind of say one of the points that Goat brought up just now was that the idea of like not having to save the entire galaxy all the time. That's actually one thing, now that I'll kind of reflect back a little bit. This is I kind of agree with that a little bit. It is kind of refreshing to not have a Star Wars movie where like the fate of the galaxy hangs in the balance and they're always constantly trying to one up themselves to the point where it feels like the episodes have written themselves into a bit of a corner right now, where there should be like, I don't know, like five members of the Resistance left and like 10 members of the Imperial forces, like, because they've like massively murdered each other like so many times that
they have.
so it's just kind of feels like they've built it and ratcheted it up so much to where it's like too much. And now you can't top it anymore, to just kind of be like, well, since we can't top it, let's take a step back and go with a smaller scale, like just kind of heist thing. So that's a good point.
Yeah. So moving along, Matt, what was your favorite film of the year 2018?
Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And much like Jelly, this was kind of probably impacted by the experience of seeing it with my son. Now, my son is going to be 5 this year. The movie is probably a bit above his maturity. There's some things that happen in the film that are fairly mature, but like the sheer aesthetics of it, we were both dying laughing at Spider-Pig. I mean, there's so many awesome moments in this film. Incredible heart, great character dynamics. It, again, uses the medium and gets the most out of the visuals. I am a huge fan of Kingpin's redesign. I know we talked about that kind of in our chat, but like I thought it fit perfectly with the medium. And there's just like, what can you say bad about this film? It was basically perfect. And again, watching with my son and seeing like the joy on his face and seeing him laugh at some of the stuff, like it was just an absolute blast in the theater. And yeah, I mean, it's just a wonderful movie.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, the reaction I feel like this film has gotten from, what the anticipation level was relatively modest a couple of months or even a month before it came out, and it's like, it's hanging in the top 5 in the box office too. So I mean, a lot of people are having the same reaction you guys have. So I can't wait to see it myself. So Byrd, what was your favorite movie of 2018?
I'm the only person that's going to talk about this movie. Sounds like I have maybe a minority opinion on it, but I feel like this movie probably appealed to things to me and things that like maybe don't appeal to anyone else in this group but me. But that is Paul Schrader's First Reformed. I thought it was tremendous. I understand the people that had frustrations with it, and they're all very understandable. But for me, they're all things that, like, what a lot of people don't like about it are exactly the things that I like about it. I don't know. I mean, for me, I just really I'm a fan of Paul Schrader's work, most of it. This really felt like kind of a natural culmination of a lot of his stuff thematically. Ethan Hawke just put in an incredible performance as this priest who is just existentially tormented by, his faith and trying to maintain it, and the despair of really what the human race is and coming to understand that. And it's a slow burn, and he just really kind of slowly descends into madness in a way that a lot of Schrader's anti-heroes do. And aesthetically, I really loved the way that it was shot, the use of the aspect ratio. It just, I love slow burn dramatic movies that really focus on a character and just kind of raise a lot more questions than answers. And I recognize that might be something those might be qualities that out of this group only I really am into. And this movie kind of just checked off all those things, and it was just a really pleasant surprise. Again, I saw it in the middle of the summer, sandwiched between like Jurassic World and Pacific Rim 2 or some nonsense, and it was just like, wow, like that I saw that at just the right time. It was just a breath of fresh air compared to all the garbage that I was seeing. And
you saw it on a double bill right after Burger King Cup, the motion picture.
Yeah, exactly.
and Paul Schrader restored your faith.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of just right place at the right time involved in that, and I dug it. So there's that. That completes my top my top movies of 2018.
This whole time, Byrd, I've been sitting here waiting to see where First Reform is going to wind up on your list. I loved it as well. I think I saw these like back to back. I saw them both on video, but I think I saw this back to back with like within like 3 days of each other of with Hereditary, and for much different reasons. But both films really, really worked on me psychologically, gave me like a sick feeling. I just this is another one I look forward to revisiting sometime. Not too not too distant future. So yeah, big ups, big recommendations for First Reformed. All right, Jelly, I will ask you, what was your favorite film of 2018?
It's been mentioned already, but Sorry to Bother You is my favorite movie of the year. Everyone else has said kind of everything except what I'll add a little bit is I really like the way this movie kind of played with style, being kind of both like grounded and just kooky over the top stuff. The humor in it being both pointed and just like something stupid, like his first day in the office when the copier is going crazy. Like it really plays with like a whole bunch of stuff. It's like Boots Riley just kind of just being a goofball almost like throughout the whole thing, but also having a valid point to make. And so it's so unique, and it's such a unique film with a unique voice behind it. And then also, while we're talking about just some of the unique aspects of it, I really liked the white voice, and I really liked when the one character kind of comments, "Hey, it sounds like you're being dubbed over there," and just that sort of like fourth wall kind of humor. And the way the movie does that, like throughout, it winds up building you towards something, and you think, because everyone says, "Oh, there's a twist," and you think like, "Oh, I think I'm gonna have it figured out," and I think everyone's gonna be lying when they say, you won't figure out the twist, but you will not figure out the twist. If you do, you are lying. Period. It blindsides you, and it's hard to get too deep into it without giving spoilers. But as soon as it happened, I was like, "Yep, I love this movie." And I mean, I knew I really liked it before that, but like, just the way it happens, and the style of the thing is just, I was like, "Yep, no, I am in love." And it is definitely going to be a thing where you either love it or hate it.
If you hate it, you're wrong.
Yeah, I watched this movie with my mother and wife, and the first time I saw it, and I was like, "I don't know what happens, but I know something crazy happens. That's all I know." And they were both like kind of into it, and then that twist happened, and they were like, "What the fuck is wrong with you? And where do you find movies like this?" and like, that's a valid reaction, but it's also, it is wrong. This movie just hits right in my wheelhouse, and I absolutely loved it. Like I said, it's possible it slips to number 2 after I rewatch Spider-Verse, and if that movie knocks my socks off again. But this is also a movie where I don't know if anyone else here has had kind of the opportunity to watch it a second time, but there are certain little things kind of sprinkled in throughout that are sort of like hiding in plain sight type of things that you can pick up on a rewatch that make it funny and still work again the second and probably more times around. So Sorry to Bother You is awesome.
When that movie came out in Japan, do you think they were just like, oh well, okay? Like they get crazy stuff like this like every week over there.
Yeah. In China, the reaction was they probably burned down the cinema, but that's that's how China goes. So yeah, amazing, diverse list of films we gone over tonight. Last but not least, Trev, I will ask you, what was your favorite film of 2018?
So remember at the beginning of the night when I said that Incredibles 2 was the only superhero movie on my list? That's kind of funny because I just completely forgot my number one movie is a superhero movie. And that is, as the much now discussed, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Wow.
Totally blown away by this. It's like Jelly was talking about Mask of the Phantasm, and beyond that, I've long wondered why we don't get more animated superhero films. And I know we get a lot of those like DC direct-to-video ones, and those are fine sometimes, but I mean more like theatrical release films, because at the end of the day, comic books are a drawn medium, so it seemed like animated films kind of were a natural fit for them. And I think we've just kind of fallen into this like paradigm of thinking like, well, the live action superhero movies, that's where it's at. And this was a nice reminder that what you can do with animation in that form that you can't do in live action, and just show us a world that just looks so different and is so visually unique. And just as a comic book fan, and I think I'm unique in this group in that I think we all like comic books, but I'm one of the people that's been reading them kind of consistently for a long time and still reading them. So to see characters like Miles Morales, who in recent years had popped up and become a fan favorite, and I was really excited to see him. And then even like the Spider-Verse storyline, which is what just happened a few years ago, and Spider-Gwen and things like that. To see all that actually brought to life in a way I never thought I'd get to see, and just so accurate, and with the heart and spirit of the comics. Total home run. And the Stan Lee cameo made me tear up because it came, so soon after his death, and just like everything about it was just perfect in the moment. And it also has Nicolas Cage in it, so there you go.
Exactly. Every movie gets 20% better with the addition of Nicolas Cage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I forgot to mention the Stan Lee cameo when it was. I do remember sitting in the theater, and it's not even just the fact that it was so close to his death, because he had a cameo in Venom also, and that was close to his death, and that was just one of those kind of prototypical like Stanley says something funny. This is just the way it's constructed. It has like what he says. Mm-hmm. In it feels like Stanley saying goodbye.
Yeah, it's a nice goodbye.
And it hits you. It definitely hit me.
Mm-hmm. So that's amazing how high the Spider-Verse again. And I have to say it's a testament to the fans of this film, I guess, that I haven't had everything spoiled to me already. Everybody else has seen this movie twice at least. I still haven't seen it. I have plans to see it next week. I hope I love it as much as you guys do. But no matter what, wow, talk about an amazing list of films we just went up and down here for the last couple hours. I know it was a marathon for us to record. I'm sure it's a marathon for the listeners to listen to. So we'll just go out on a quick note, and we'll just say, what's your most anticipated film in 2019? For me, believe it or not, it's actually Captain Marvel. I kind of really enjoy outer space superhero flicks, especially the Marvel ones in particular. I don't really want to say too much. They teased the return of some minor MCU characters, like in the initial photos they put out, but they never showed these characters in the trailer, so I don't want to say too much. But the whole kind of semi-prequel nature of it, and the fact that Captain Marvel is supposedly going to be a big force going forward in MCU, it really got me looking forward to it. And I have to say, like, a lot of these comic book movies, I go see them all, I buy them all, they're on my Blu-ray shelf. I don't anticipate them anymore because they're always coming out. I don't know, for some reason I'm looking forward to this one. Matt, what's your most anticipated movie of 2019?
I mean, the obvious choice is Godzilla King of the Monsters, but instead of going there, I'm going to say It Chapter 2. I loved the first one, and really, really excited to see the sequel.
Interesting. Yeah, that one seemed so far away. I wasn't even thinking of it. But yeah, I think a lot of people are going to be jacked for that one. Byrd, what is your most anticipated?
I mean, the obvious is Godzilla. But I mean, after that, I mean, I honestly, I'm gonna sound like John Q audience here would be maybe Avengers. I liked Infinity War so much, and I just really kind of want to see how it wraps up. Um, uh, and yeah, I mean, there's some other smaller stuff like the Scorsese Irishman. Once they finally finish spending billions of dollars digitally de-aging Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci, it'll be on Netflix this year. I think this might have been on my list last year, but it's still not out. So, I mean, there's other stuff too, but yeah, I mean, that's some of the stuff that I'm really looking forward to.
Awesome. Yeah, Netflix spent $6 billion on content this year. 1.3 billion of it was just on de-aging all the classic Scorsese actors for that movie.
I just feel like that they've been doing that forever.
I know. Yeah, you think by now it'd just be like a Snapchat app, and they wouldn't really have to spend months and months of like doing that. But Jelly, what's your most anticipated film of 2019?
Like Matt and Byrd, I mean, there's pretty much no chance that Godzilla King of the Monsters is anywhere but number one next year. I mean, unless it's like a tremendous piece of crap or something. If it's as good as like Kong Skull Island, it will be a lock for my number one. But the movie that like I'm kind of anticipating in the most like. I don't know if it's going to be good. It could be good. It could be disappointing, whatever. Is Toy Story 4. You know, we're back on that Pixar thing of like, this could be another one of their like tearsploitation type of movies. But also, I've liked all three of the previous Toy Story movies. This is the only movie that I have currently physically circled on a calendar, because I told my daughter, hey, there's going to be a new Toy Story this year. Do you think you'd want to go see it? And she like got super excited. So I had to show her it's far away. But yeah, I'm looking forward to having that experience again of being able to take, you know, one of my kids, possibly both of my kids. My son might be, you know, ready to sit in a movie theater by the time this comes out. So to kind of be able to get and have that, you know, first like kind of family experience and have that kind of outing, I'm really looking forward to that aspect of it. And so even if the movie leaves me cold, I'm really looking forward to having like a day with the kids to go see Toy Story 4.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. That's actually a very good reason to look forward to seeing a movie for sure. Especially if it ends up being your son's first film, it will kind of be like the mirror image of when you took your daughter to see Incredibles. So
yeah. Plus, like, I remember Toy Story, like the original one, you know, and like I mean, it hit at that perfect age for me too, where I was like young enough to still like. Young enough to not think I was too cool for like a kid's animated movie, but also old enough to realize like the significance of that movie and being the first like fully computer animated movie. And I mean, the animation in it still pretty well holds up. I mean, the only real exception being the obvious choice of like, oh, everyone has to have like the short, tight hair, even the dog, because they. You know, if they did real hair on the computers they were using back then, that shit would still be rendering. But
some of the backgrounds though, like in the chase at the end, is better than the shit you see in some movies now. To be honest with you.
Yeah. So yeah, Toy Story is Toy Story 4. Really looking forward to it, honestly.
Yeah, to be honest, I haven't kept up with the sequels, but much like you, I was at the very tender age of 18 years old that I had no problems being a huge Toy Story fan, and I saw it twice in the theater and even bought the full-size Buzz Lightyear figure with the electronics and all that. So yeah, Toy Story. Trev, last but not least, what's your most anticipated film of 2019?
Well, I don't have kids, so while Jelly's getting excited about seeing Toy Story 4, screw that. I'm going to go see a violent movie about the Manson murders. So my most anticipated movie by far is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yep.
I'm always looking forward to a new Tarantino film, and I love that this one. I think it's really cool that we don't know exactly what this one is yet. I mean, we know it's tangentially about the Manson murders, but it's obviously not just that. It's the storyline about DiCaprio and Brad Pitt's characters, a failed actor and a stuntman trying to break into or get back into the film industry. So a cool like Tarantino period piece, which we don't know what it is. And I mean, look, you got DiCaprio, Brad Pitt, Margot Robbie, Al Pacino, Damian Lewis, Bruce Dern, Dakota Fanning, Scoot McNairy, Luke Perry, Clifton Collins Jr., Kurt Russell, Michael Madsen, Tim Roth. Yeah, I'm pretty excited for this, I'd say.
Does this movie have a release date yet?
Yeah, July. July.
Trev, you forgot Lena Dunham.
Yeah, I mean, I purposely forgot Lena Dunham, but
As we all did.
Yeah.
I accidentally forgot
Lena Dunham is not going to keep me from seeing this one because, if Tarantino's a man of his word, there's only one more after this, so we got to savor these while we can. And yeah, so definitely looking forward to it.
Well, let's hope he's a lying son of a bitch.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, I sure hope so too. So that's it. 2018, 2019. We're already in 2019. It's crazy how time flies. It's always nice to do these things, though, to encapsulate kind of some of your highlights of your movie-going year. I want to thank all the listeners for listening, obviously. We appreciate that. I want to thank all you guys for being here. Matt, Jelly, Byrd, Trev. This was a lot of fun. Definitely, we got to try to keep this tradition going in some form or another. I know we only usually release 1 or 2 episodes a month, so if you guys are out there and need some podcasts to listen to, you're definitely going to tune in to Matt and Byrd on Kaiju Transmissions. And also, too, you're always going to want to get them hot scoops about the X-Men and just comic book stuff in general on the Trev Show. I always am afraid I'm going to mess this up.
Trev Show.
Yeah. Days of Future Podcast examining the X-Men.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm always afraid I'm going to screw that up. But guys, thanks so much. This was awesome. I mean, we're almost in February, but this was a nice way to cap off 2018. Everybody, this is our first show in 2019, so Happy New Year. I hope you guys are doing good. Stick to your resolutions. Everybody, pump them weights. Everybody on this podcast is getting swole, hitting the gym, except for me and Byrd. We're the only ones.
Yeah, we're not.
we just stay on the couches. But anyway, guys, thank you so much. Listeners, thank you so much. And we'll see you next time.
It was a pleasure.
The
Thanks.
Movie Graveyard. Who said the Frankenstein thank you at the end? Who was that?
That was me, I think.
Oh, okay. It sounded like Frankenstein all of a sudden. It's like, whoa.